The hour of 6:30 PM having arrived, I will call to order this regular meeting of the Planning Board. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. All actions taken during this evening's meeting will also be posted on the Planning Board webpage on the city website. Copies of the printed agendas are available in the wall pockets as you entered the room. The public and other board members will be recognized to ask questions and comment on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes to speak has a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Our minute taker is participating remotely this evening. Board members, please be sure to turn on your microphone when speaking. If the minute taker is unable to hear, they will ask that you speak louder or turn your microphone on. I will now call to order this regular meeting of the Planning Board and declare a quorum present. Although I guess I'll do that after we do the roll call.
Harold Farrington,
Present.
Roberta Mastrogiovanni,
Here.
Mayor Jay Kahn,
Here.
Mike Remy,
Here.
Sarah Vazani,
Here.
Ryan Clancy, Kenneth Cost,
Here.
Armando Rangel,
Here.
and for the alternates, Stefan Mayhew, Randon Markelin, Tammy Adams, Michael Hafer.
Here.
It does appear that we have at least one vacant voting member spot this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Clements. I will therefore invite Mr. Hafer to participate as a voting member in this evening's meeting. Okay. Next up is the minutes of our previous meeting, July 28th, 2025. These were distributed in the agenda packet. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
July 20.
Move approval of the minutes of the July 28th, 2025 meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Councilor Remy, thank you. Any comments or questions on the minutes? I have a couple of corrections, I think. Line 94. I don't know who's checking. Megan, is that you that's checking? Yeah, she's following along. Okay. Line 94. I think the word percent should be precedent. Just two more. Line 286 and 287. I would suggest that we strike the words after proposes to all the way through to the word replace. Somehow some extra verbiage got in there. And finally, line 367. So the 350 should be 3 space 50. Okay? All right. So now that we have a motion and some corrections, I will call the vote on the approval of the July 28 minutes. All those in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay. Next item on the agenda is an extension request, PB-2025-01, a two-lot subdivision for Keene State College, 238, 268 Main Street. Owner, the University System of New Hampshire, requests a first extension to the deadline to satisfy the precedent conditions of approval for the proposed two-lot subdivision of the parcel at 238 to 260 Main. So is it 238, 268, or 238, 260? Do you know, Evan? It's one or the other.
Yeah, I know they're right next to each other.
Yes, they are. Yes. All right, well, I assume we'll be able to correct that. Thank you. In any event, the tax map plat numbers are 590-101-000. So subdividing into two lots, approximately 0.48 acres and approximately 0.46 acres in size. The property is located in the downtown transition district. Is anyone here from Keene State to discuss this? Okay.
So I have the details on this. So they submitted an extension request at staff's recommendation because technically their conditional approval expired yesterday, and they are basically all set for final approval. Unfortunately, we won't be able to act on that tonight. The last outstanding item for their application is signed paper copies of the final plat. When they submitted everything, they inadvertently submitted an earlier version on the paper copies, but the Mylar plats were correct. We had asked them to resubmit paper copies that matched the Mylar, and I talked to the surveyor today what the status was on that resubmission, and he had given Keene State new paper copies, but was unsure where they were on their side. Our best guess is that they're sitting on somebody's desk. So unfortunately, the extension request we think is appropriate. They're basically there, but we won't be able to act on their final approval tonight. To answer your next question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clement. Does anyone have any questions for staff on this extension request?
Does look like it's 260.
260, okay. Thank you. So it looks like it is 238 and 260. Any questions or comments? Board members? Okay. So at this time, I'll ask for a motion.
I'd like to move to grant a first 6-month extension to the timeframe to satisfy the precedent conditions of approval for PB-2025-01, a two-lot subdivision, Keene State College, 238 through 260 Main Street.
Thank you.
Second.
Counselor Remy, thank you. Okay, any discussion or further questions at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the extension? Any opposed? Okay, extension is granted. Okay. At this time, let's see if there are any final vote on conditional approvals ready for tonight.
Unfortunately, we do not have any applications that are ready for final approval this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to our continued public hearing. This is for PB 2024-20, earth excavation permit, major amendment, and hillside protection conditional use permit, gravel pit 21 and 57 Route 9. Applicant Granite Engineering LLC, on behalf of owner G2 Holdings LLC, proposes to expand the existing gravel pit located at 21 and 57 Route 9, TMP numbers 215-007-000 and 215-008-000. A hillside protection conditional use permit is requested for impacts to steep slopes. Waivers are requested from section 25.3.1.d, 25.3.3, 25.3.6, and 25.3.13 of the Land Development Code related to the 250-foot surface water resource setback, excavation below the water table, toxic or acid-forming materials, and the 5-acre excavation area maximum. The parcels are on a combined approximately 109.1 acres in size and are located in the rural district. So at this time, I would ask if staff has a further report that they would like to share at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to the, that's only for completeness, which we already passed. So let's invite the applicant to present at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. My name is Ariane Ice. I'm here with my partner Tom Ice tonight.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
It was on. Oh, okay. Is that better?
Yeah, it'll be a green light if it's on.
Okay. Start that again. I'm Ariane Ice. I'm here with my partner Tom Ice. We represent the applicant G2 Holdings. G2 Holdings is here tonight seeking an extension of their current permit, which approved a gravel pit operation, hand in hand with a conditional use permit for hillside protection, along with 3 related waivers. One of those 4 waivers you mentioned has been withdrawn. Tonight, we have with us here, we have the applicant Cody Gordon and his brother Cooper Gordon. We have a number of supporters of the project with us. We have our technical team. Brent Cole is here with me. Dustin Daigneault, Brent and Justin are with Granite Engineering, and hydrogeologist Joel Benazak is right behind me. We also have appearing through written opinion testimony. We have Luke Hurley, who's opining on wildlife, Mark Krumenacher, a professional geologist, Dr. Kathy Emmon Martin, a PhD and expert in noise and vibration issues, and James Widener, a local realtor with knowledge of the real estate market. We've also submitted a letter of support from one of the closest and largest abutters to the Keene property, Granite Gorge. I'm going to just talk for about 5 minutes, just a quick overview. Some of this already was presented early on to you, so, and then I'm going to turn it over to Brett and his team to kind of go through some of the technical elements as well. Just a little bit background on the process and what's in front of the board tonight. It's been a long process. There's been an extensive and thorough process of getting to this point. As many of you know, and has been discussed at the first hearing, the Keene Earth Excavation Code is probably one of the most comprehensive in the state. It meets in all instances or exceeds the state earth excavation regulations under RSA 155E. The Keene staff has done, I would say, an amazing job with a highly technical subject matter of ensuring that the regulations have been met in terms of what's being presented tonight. Under their direction, they hired 2 independent third-party reviewers to oversee and analyze and opine on the technical aspects of the project. I believe Sanford Head is here through the Zoom. Not sure, is Fieldstone here as well tonight? Okay. Fieldstone Chad is not here. Those reviewers did not rubber stamp this project. They flagged concerns that resulted in numerous plan changes, some of which are going to be discussed tonight. And all the parties, and that also includes the Keene Conservation Commission, who made comments and suggestions that were made the plan tweak. The Southwest Regional Planning Board, they were involved, have all worked together, and everyone has been satisfied that the technical aspects of the excavation regulations have been satisfied, and or that reasonable waivers are being proposed. And you mentioned those waivers, so I'm not going to repeat them, but there is 3 of them tonight. A little bit, we want to recognize that there has been a very vocal minority of the public that has opposed this project. You heard from many of them at the last hearing. There's been some written comments submitted, many of which are not Keene residents. None of those objectors who have spoken so far about the project are actually abutters to the Keene portion of the project. Their status as abutters on the Sullivan properties will afford their concerns additional weight when the applicant goes in front of Sullivan at a hearing on September 3rd. But for purposes of Keene's approval, their concerns should be viewed as coming from the general public rather than a butter status. I know the last meeting, some were called up as abutters, but they don't abut the actual property that's in Keene that's under consideration for this permitting tonight. We believe that their concerns fall in a general not in my backyard kind of category, which if afforded too much weight would completely foreclose gravel pits anywhere unless it's a region so remote that the public's interest in keeping their transportation costs low would also be harmed. The state statute, RSA 155E, was passed specifically to resolve this situation. And interesting, because I'm not sure if this body has sat in that role, but you're here tonight as a regulator under 155E, little different than your normal planning board hats. We'll be talking to you, about the statute, but like I said, your regulations in every instance are meet or exceed it, so we really are focused on the Keene's Land Development Code. In the enactment of RSA 155E, it explicitly recognizes the importance of affordable and accessible construction material to serve the best interests of the citizens of New Hampshire and the taxpayers of the state as well. This interest and the stated purpose is in the preamble to the enactment of the code itself, and it is actually quoted on page 9 of Dr. Emmon Martin's report. And this is the legislature, talking about why it's so important to make sure towns and cities don't regulate out the ability to have a gravel pit in your community. The upshot of all this is the state has decreed that public concerns and even city regulations must bend to the overriding public interest in having affordable construction materials. It cannot work in such a way that it completely bans excavation projects such as this one. And so, we've heard comments here and at some of the other meetings, people say, this doesn't benefit us. Why are we doing this? Why is this board considering it? This is a for-profit business for the applicant. And the reason is that this industry has been flagged as an important industry. And, the hoops to jump through to get to this point are great, and we hope we'll present an application. You see all the work that went into it, but just not wanting it here is really not enough. The second thing to keep in mind when considering public concern is, like the chair said at the last hearing, the voices of the experts, especially those independent experts hired to advise the city, should carry more weight than the concerned voices by individuals that are not backed by science or expert testimony. We believe our thorough application and testimony tonight, live and in writing, should address all concerns the board might have. I'd ask you to remember a few key points as you deliberate tonight. We believe the Keene location is just about as perfect a spot you can get if you're going to put a gravel pit in. In this case, the applicant is his own abutter on much of the land. The actual excavation site, which you'll see tonight, and you can see it on the plan that's submitted, is very small in comparison to the overall parcels. It's just a 4-acre section in the general overall area. It falls outside the view shed that the city of Keene has designated the different view protection areas that are in your code. It's not in one. There's 3 areas, two are kind of given special consideration. This one falls outside of that. It's accessed off a state highway. It doesn't really affect any city roads, and it's surrounded by large commercial swaths like Granite Gorge and the shooting range. And lastly, to the extent that the comments from the general public are citizens of Sullivan and Gilsum, it's important to remember that Sullivan will do its own evaluation, and to the extent they have valid concerns, they will protect their citizens as appropriate. Gilsum has already has a permit going, and they will address the concerns as it comes before that board in an ongoing monitoring manner. I will now turn it over to Brenton and Granite Engineering to discuss some of the technical aspects. I will certainly be available for any questions you have.
Thank you, Ariane.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Brent Cole with Granite Engineering. We presented to this board back in March. We gave an overview of the overall project, but I'm here to kind of recap what has transpired in the last 5 or 6 months. We've collaborated a lot with your staff. I think we have a project that has been signed off by staff, signed off by the engineers, and we're kind of moving forward with something that has a lot of safeguards built in, a lot of monitoring above and beyond what your regulations say, and I think it's a really, really good project. We are proposing the expansion of the gravel operation that this board approved back in 2022. It does involve tax map 215, lot 7, and lot 8, but it also includes 2 lots that are in Sullivan. Those lots all combine for 300 acres, and Cody bought those lots to help insulate himself, to keep his project centered and with the most buffer to any of his abutting land. Like I said, 300 acres, and we're disturbing 31. So it's 10% of the land that's actually owned out here. You guys have, the Keene regulations require 300 feet to property lines. That far exceeds the 50 feet that the state requires, and we uphold those standards to any of the abutting property lines. The gravel operation is accessed off Route 9. There is a buffer that the city requires that was upheld in 2022 and continues to be upheld. We drove by it today, and you cannot see the gravel operation from Route 9 if you are in front of the property along that frontage, which is what your regulations state. The project is broken up into 8 periods to make sure that we are not disturbing any more land than we have to. Each period requires a compliance hearing, so it will require staff to review the project and a compliance hearing back with this board to make sure everything is moving forward. There will be a bond taking place before they can move into the next period. Period 1 starts off near the current operation, and we work our way uphill towards Sullivan with each period kind of consecutively. The last period is the period that you guys actually approved 3 years ago, which lowers the current deck floor and allows Cody to extract the material that he's already gotten approved. Right now, he uses that area as his current processing area. So our first waiver that we're actually requesting is to allow more than 5 acres to be disturbed at once. This board approved that waiver back in 2022. 5 acres is not a lot of land when you're talking in terms of gravel operation. And he actually uses that initial 5 acres for his processing area. If any of you went on the site walk, that area that he's opened up, that he's got stabilized to gravel is actually 5 acres. So he can't move forward on another phase unless he opens up more than 5 acres. So the first waiver would be allowing him to move into period 1 and open up roughly about 12 acres and then close down that 7 acres or 5 acres and then move on to the next one. Stormwater has been reviewed by your city engineer. He has signed off on the design. Each period has a settling basin to allow the water to settle out. It then migrates down towards the existing gravel operation today where it infiltrates into the soils. There will be a stormwater pond during the final phase that will allow all the water from the site to infiltrate. There are no stormwater impacts off-site. We are not letting any of the stormwater leave. Everything is being mitigated. There is no adverse impacts to any of the properties, and that has been signed off by your city engineer, and we are waiting for our alteration of terrain permit. We received minimal comments. We're expecting that within a few weeks. Other permits that we need to get, it was mentioned that we have a conditional use permit because of the Hillside Protection Overlay District. Again, this permit was approved back in 2022. It's a very similar permit that when we applied for then. We have 25% slopes on site. It's a gravel operation. There's going to be steep slopes. We are affecting them, but we have an erosion control plan in place. We have a reclamation plan in place. Again, it has been reviewed by your city engineer and signed off on. The last waiver that I'm going to touch on is, again, another waiver that's board approved in 2022, and that was the reducing one of the wetland setbacks from 250 feet to 75 feet. To get you oriented, Route 9 is down here. The gravel operation is in through this area. This area reflects 31 acres of the overall mass of the site, which is 300 acres. There's a small, low-functioning wetland here that this board allowed us to encroach within 75 feet of in 2022. Obviously, we want to continue that operation. We don't want to have to pack up and move our stuff. It's already there. You guys probably witnessed it. There is a nice substantial buffer. It actually goes uphill to the wetland. It doesn't go downhill, which is a very weird buffer, but Nevertheless, we are looking to continue to impact that 255 feet and reduce that down to 75 feet. And then we'll be impacting a part of that buffer in through here because operations already exist there and we're just expanding into it. But we're not going within 75 feet. We have a wetland scientist look at the function and values of that. It's a very low functioning wetland, and we are asking for that waiver tonight. As Ariane kind of mentioned before, there really is no site better in Keene than this. It's zoned appropriately. It's on the outskirts of town. It's almost in Sullivan and Roxbury. It is well buffered. It is on Route 9. It's 300 acres, and we're only disturbing 10% of it, and it will be reclaimed afterwards back to a somewhat natural site. You know, it won't be treed, but it'll be grass, and it will follow the reclamation standards of RSA 155 for whatever development wants to go there in the future. Our closest abutter is 1,600 feet away. Most abutters are half mile. We only really have two residential buffers that are, two residential abutters that are actually in Keene. So it's a large property on the outskirts of town. I can't see how this couldn't be zoned and more of an appropriate use for this land. Ariane mentioned that Keene's regulations are comprehensive. They're robust, they're rigorous, they're strict. I think that they've maybe been harvested from regulations from southern states because some concerns that are in the regulations don't really apply to New Hampshire. I would go out on the limb and say that they are the most toughest in New England. They are extremely, extremely strict. But we've worked with city staff, we've worked with your hydrogeologist, we've worked with your town engineer to come up with a plan that meets their standards. They've signed off on it. It has monitoring, it has wells that have been dug out there, there's testing involved. It has all the safeguards that exceed your regulations and exceed any other town's requirements. So I think it's a really thorough plan. And with that, I'm going to let Joel, the hydrogeologist, kind of touch base on the last waiver. And from there, we'll hand it back to you guys for any questions.
Hi, everyone. Joel Banzak, professional geologist with Frontier Geoservices. I'm the individual who worked on the acid mine drainage potential report for this project. I figured the best way to present this is just kind of tell the saga from beginning to end. To assess for the acid mine drainage potential, we needed to provide quantifiable results that indicated we either do or do not have the potential to produce acid mine drainage. So what we first did is we collected samples of the bedrock, sent it off to a laboratory in Canada who does this all the time, and got validated results that basically looked at the ratio of the potential acid-forming minerals versus the potential alkaline-forming minerals. What we found is that a lot of the rock at that area actually does have a ratio that is more acidic than it is alkaline. So there is the potential for this rock to produce acid mine drainage. Whenever those results came in, honestly, we were all a little bit shocked because, as everyone's kind of alluded to, we're not asked to look for this very often in New England. In fact, this is the first time I've been asked to do an acid mine drainage potential analysis ever. And we kind of wonder, like, why? Why do we not really see acid mine drainage in New England if these rocks have the potential to produce it? And there are some interpretations behind that. But essentially, we don't seem to have the correct recipe to create acid mine drainage. While we have the acidic forming minerals and the acidic forming compounds, we need two other things. We need water and air to create the acid. As you guys know, we're in the granite state, and a lot of the rocks in the granite state are crystalline, so they don't have any porosity to them, so they don't allow water to move through them. They don't allow air to move through them. So those are the two components of the recipe that we're kind of missing out there to create the acid mine drainage. But with that being said, we saw that it has the potential. We saw those numbers and we said we need to act diligently and with caution. So the first thing we did, we said we're going to have to look for this. So we developed a monitoring program where we look at the groundwater throughout a series of monitoring wells that are out at the site. And then secondly, we look at the surface water and the storm water. Sanborn Head's geologists reviewed that monitoring program. They had some great input on it. We included their comments in it. And it's a very robust monitoring program that we have some quarterly monitoring requirements, and then we also even have monthly monitoring requirements. So it's above and beyond what is even typically required for like an actual contaminated site in New Hampshire. And that's just the preliminary assessment of just watching out for this stuff that we really don't even know if it's actually going to show up. And then from there, we took it a step further and we said, okay, we see that this could be a problem. What sort of like proactive mitigation efforts could we put in place so that it doesn't harm anything? We have people here that actually care a lot. We have a willing operator, and Cody and I sat down and we talked about it, and it's like, what are you willing to do? And so we decided that a good proactive mitigation measure would be to line all the stormwater conveyances with alkaline materials. Limestone's a wonderful material to do this with. It has good surface area. It can buffer any sort of acid, that may come down the pike. So that's the first effort. And then the second big one is that none of this water is going to leave the site. As Brenton had mentioned, all the stormwater, it gets infiltrated into the groundwater, so there's no potential really for any sort of like acute effects of anything running into Outbrook or any other surface waters. And I think that's big, that's very important. And even so then, after we had our monitoring program, we had our mitigation efforts, we took it a step further and we said, okay, even if after all of the, mitigation efforts, what if this stuff actually does show up? And we developed our initial response action plan. Our initial response action plan outlined a series of activities that we would do basically immediately if this acid mine drainage did show up in our monitoring results. And those initial response actions included a variety of things, but if it showed up in the groundwater, we delineate by putting in more monitoring wells. If it shows up in the groundwater, we initiate immediate domestic water well sampling. And furthermore, and it's not meant to be a comprehensive list, but I know that we even said, hey, if this stuff is really nasty and it's a real problem, we'll impound it and we'll treat it. It's a big thing to sign up for, and all of the things that we put in place, I think, are kind of a belt and suspenders approach to something that we don't see in New England. We aren't typically asked to look for, and that's why we're requesting a waiver from this.
Thank you, Board. I think with that, we'll hand it back to you for questions or
Sure.
how you want to handle tonight.
Thank you. So, board members have questions for the applicant? I just have a quick one. Could you help me with the math on the 31 acres of disturbed land and 8 periods?
Correct.
Because you said the first one is, or the next one up is going to be 7 acres more.
Yep, correct.
So for future periods will be much smaller?
Yeah, we've got a period in there that I think is like 0.4 acres. So they all kind of vary on themselves, and 31 acres, they wouldn't never be 31 acres open at one time. They'd be reclaimed back
Understand,
to,
yep.
a more natural state. So yeah, each one kind of varies. It is listed on the overview, but I think the most that we're asking for disturbed at one point is in and around that 12 acre area.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Cost.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question. When you were talking about acid mine drainage, it won't run off the site? So it's going to go into an infiltration pond and infiltrate to the groundwater. How does that happen? If it's going into the groundwater, it's still going into the groundwater and possibly affecting groundwater area and wells and things like that. So I didn't quite understand the mitigation. You would monitor it, and if you see it, you'd monitor it more if it's affecting wells. But what do you actually do about it if it's going into the groundwater? It seems like we're taking, okay, it's not running off the surface into the, out of creek, but it's running into the groundwater, which sounds serious to me if that's the case.
Yeah, I think I'll let Joel touch on it. The acid that Joel is talking about, I know it's a scary term, but it's just a little bit more acidic than it is. It's not true acid, but Joel.
Yeah, so excuse me, sorry, but yeah, whenever we're talking about acid mine drainage, it's not like a true like sulfuric acid that you would imagine like a car battery. We're talking about a low pH water that has the ability to dissolve heavy metals out of the rock. That's the big, kind of two component thing that we, look at to define acid mine drainage. And I guess, whenever we talk about our monitoring program, there's two places we're looking for it, right? In the surface water, and I kind of consider the stormwater our surface water, and then we're also looking for it in the groundwater. If it shows up in the surface water, we kind of already have our mitigation efforts in place with our limestone-lined, stormwater conveyances, and then also those infiltration ponds will be lined with limestone as well. So that's kind of like the first key to stopping this stuff from even getting into the groundwater. And that's a very common practice. Like if you kind of just do a quick Google search of like how do you treat acid mine drainage, sites that are currently being affected by this is one of their number one goes to. And we're kind of trying to stay a step ahead of it, like you said, with doing some proactive mitigation by lining these basins and these stormwater conveyances with it. Now, your question was, what happens if it ends up and shows up in the groundwater? Are we just monitoring for it? Well, yes and no. I mean, there is the initial response action plan that says we're going to delineate, first of all. We're going to make sure that we see where it's showing up and where it's not showing up. And then what can we do about it being in the groundwater? That's kind of one of those things that it's a bit further down the road. That's one of because you don't know how big the problem is. You don't know how bad the problem is. Hopefully, if it were to get that far, you'd catch it before it's so kind of, bad that it's going to affect any sort of domestic wells. And again, that's built into our initial response action plan with that delineation and that initial domestic water well sampling program. Things that you can do about it being in the groundwater, it's a little bit limited, to be honest. I mean, they don't really often pump and treat this stuff or anything like that, but the big thing is to stop it from getting any worse, and we already have that built into our plan with the mitigation and the initial response action.
Mr. Hafer.
Yeah, follow-up question while we have the hydraulics here on
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Yep, and I will even point it at my mouth. I'll do both. Even the existence of the way you described it earlier, what I took from it was that it's rare for this to happen in New Hampshire based on the quality of the rock we have. Although the rock, it's possible to create this. What I took from it was it's not common for that to happen. Has it happened in New Hampshire? Has it happened in New England? Have the operator ever come across this situation, or are we really?
No, that's a very interesting thing to ask because Russ and I even talked about this. It's like, how many other acid mine drainage sites do we know of? And maybe two. I think there's one in Warren, then I think there's another one in Vermont, the Day Mine, and those are very specific circumstances where they weren't just excavating granite and then it showed up. They were going after specific ores. I think the one was a copper mine. The other one, very, very specific heavy metal ores that they were going after. And the rock's different in that area. I think that if you looked into it, probably more porous material, more interaction with water. And then a lot of the times, whenever we talk about acid mine drainage at ore sites, they're not modern sites. We're talking about sites that were mismanaged back at the turn of the century or in the 1800s where, a lot of the problems come from these talus piles, the waste rock. And they would just, chuck it over in the corner and it's just a big fluffy pile of popcorn rock. It rains on it, water gets all through it, and you have this real problem. And so, yeah, that's, I think, more the scenario that you see play out in New England versus, a site where they're quarrying, Rock of Ages in, Concord. They don't have an acid mine drainage problem there, and they've been going for 100 years now. And there are a variety of other places. You can just drive around outside of Keene, and there are quarries that are in this same material even, and you don't see the acid mine drainage. And that's just kind of an interesting thing, and kind of for us, I mean, I can get long-winded, but it was really interesting as a geologist to kind of see those results and then kind of step back and think about it, and why don't we see, huge problems across the board in New England whenever it seems like we do have at least one of these components present.
And just so you know, Joel mentioned Russ. Russ is technically the City of Keene's hydrogeologist. He is online tonight, so if you guys do have questions for him, I can see him right now. He is technically your hydrogeologist, and he's looking out for the City of Keene.
I just have another follow-up to the acid mine drainage question, which is, you're asking for a waiver, and yet you've got an established plan here for, detection and remediation, et cetera, which is, Sanford kind of signed off on, said it was good. So do we still need the waiver, and why is that?
So the way that we look at it, your regulations, the way that they're written, and again, it's kind of a comment that I mentioned before. It doesn't feel like the regulations were written with New England material in mind. It looks like you may have had something that was from Pennsylvania or brought in from an outside state, because it specifically states that if there is any sort of acid forming detection out here, thou shall not dig. And that's just how it reads, even though that's not really the case. I mean, there's many things we can do to help mitigate the situation, which Joel has explained tonight. So it's very black and white. It's a binary regulation, which is why we need to request the waiver from it, because obviously we can dig in this material. It's not a concern because we have all these safeguards and preventative measures to make sure it never becomes a concern like you would see in Alabama and these other states that may have a more acid mining drainage problem.
Councilor Remy?
Yeah, I think just to clarify, the exact language is excavation of bedrock shall not be permitted where bedrock contains toxic or acid-forming elements or compounds. So it's just a shall not, where some of the other ones say criteria are at. An exception shall be issued if they meet certain requirements. This one doesn't have that language.
Which, if I could speak to that, I mean, a lot of the rock will show a mineral that can form acid. I mean, it's kind of a very common thing. So the regulation is so overarching that no one should ever be allowed to, dig up bedrock in Keene ever, really. And so that's why we're asking for a waiver for it.
It's like no bedrock shall be gray. It's
Okay.
it's so obvious.
What section is that?
2536 of the LDC.
Mayor Khan?
Yeah, so staying on this one, I guess, who is it that detected that one of those metals is pyrite?
So we saw pyrite in the drilling samples, so you can actually see the mineral come up whenever you're drilling. But the laboratory analysis that was done by SGS out of Canada. They're very, I guess, reputable mining laboratory. You can Google them. They do a lot more for a lot bigger companies than me. And so they didn't look specifically at the mineralogy. What they do is they actually grind up the rock into a powder and then look at actual elemental composition. And, minerals are made of elements, so that's kind of how they, back into, okay, like how many acidic forming compounds do we have versus how many alkaline forming compounds do we have, and then look at those ratios.
And then there was so obviously we could type the metals that are in there, the acidic elements, right?
I'm sorry.
One can type what the minerals are present through that method.
Yeah, I mean, the method is actually more looking at the geochemistry of that rock, not necessarily the mineralogy. You can look at the mineralogy, but that would kind of be more of a, kind of gross overview of it, whereas this method is very specific to like the elemental composition. So it's actually a little bit more robust than if you just looked at the mineralogy and said, yeah, I have some pyrite, and then, yeah, I have, some carbonate material. It should work out. But this is like a very specific analysis that gives you the quantifiable result, which is what, you guys asked for in the regulation.
So I guess, because I can't type, what mineral falls to the alkaline or the acidic side?
So the pyrite is the one that's your acidic forming one, and then your calcium carbonate is the one that you primarily look at for your alkaline one, CaCO3.
And the iron sulfate,
So the sulfate is what comes from the pyrite. And then, so iron is just a separate metal that we talk about. That's doesn't really, do much for being acidic versus alkaline. It's really that, pyrite versus your calcium carbonate that drives that ratio as to whether or not you'll have the potential for acid mine drainage. There is another analysis that we did, though, with this. We said, okay, look at our rock and let's see what metals are in there and what potentially could leach out of it. And that, again, is like a belt and suspenders approach to this, because it's like we're not grinding the rock up into powder out there, and we're not going to be able to release all these heavy metals or even all these compounds by what Cody's proposing to do. We're talking about, creating nugget-sized rocks, not powder. And so it's kind of a different scenario that we look at in the lab, which is a lot more conservative than what we actually have in practice.
and then there's the, relative to the filtration questions, there's the analysis that there's bedrock at one level, there's the bottom level of the water detention area, and I guess just to satisfy, because there are different elevations and different tests, one point in time and another point in time. All right, I don't want to get confused. That's the reason I'm asking you. Can you just run us through what's the most desirable situation for water to be managed and filtrate, given these different elevation levels that we've got on the site, and in particular, test site 8 and where the pond is recommended?
So Granite Engineering did a great job at developing these phases and making sure that each of them have their individual storm drainage ponds, or at least, a few of them throughout the series of the project. And the stormwater conveyances, like we said, will be lined with the limestone, as will the infiltration ponds. And so that's how the water will be managed. Like anything that comes off of the area that's currently being mined will go into a conveyance. That conveyance will be lined with the limestone. That limestone will counteract any potential acid that may be coming off of that rock, although we don't expect it necessarily based on our interpretation. But we're ready for it. We're acting, proactively trying to mitigate this. And then also the infiltration pond is lined with it. So we kind of have, this very robust approach to it. And we have, I think, limited, a little bit of our travel time for that water too, by, having a different series of infiltration ponds proposed throughout the project.
Yeah, and to kind of touch base on that, we did test for water levels out there, and we've designed the site to be 6 feet above the groundwater, and that's in accordance with your regulations. You require a 6-foot, basically, factor of safety to make sure that we're not getting into any water. On top of that, MSHA, who governs and regulates and comes to these sites, who is a third-party entity that regulates gravel operations, don't allow you to operate in the water table. They don't allow you to blast in the water table, and they are on-site monitoring, making sure that there is none occurring. So we have the 6-foot buffer. We have a third-party, federal, regulated entity looking over the site. And in terms of the 6 feet, I believe that the state only requires 3. So you guys are double what the actual state requires, and we've upheld that in our current design.
I guess last question, because you've got another one. So where's the bedrock in this? Is the bedrock at the level 6 feet below where the bottom of?
No, the bedrock it'll be at the surface for a lot of these periods, until they are reclaimed with the topsoil that is stripped off, stockpiled on site. But they will be at the surface. The water is deeper within that bedrock. That's where you find that stagnant water.
And where's the filtration then taking place?
The filtration is actually taking place down on the first phase. The first phase near Route 9 is where we actually found the material that allows the infiltration to occur. So each period has a settling basin that allows the water to settle out, and then it goes through an outlet structure, very slow to help mitigate the water and bring the water down to that area near Route 9 where you do have the settling. And when I say near Route 9, it's 200 feet away. You've got that initial buffer. But there is a pocket of material that we found there that was consistent with the 2022 plan that has that infiltration pond that allows the water to actually infiltrate.
And the water table is below that
You got it.
by 6 feet?
Correct.
Ms. Visani?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you remind me which of the waivers you withdrew?
The work within the water table waiver.
Okay. So
that-
3.3, 25?
Yep,
Okay.
that waiver, and I don't have to get into it, but there was conflicting wells. There was a well that wasn't dug by us, that was dug back in 2022. It was coming up with information that we didn't agree, so we actually dug a well near it to help basically offset that. And come to find out, we didn't need that waiver because we're not going to be within the water table.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Mr. Cost?
Thank you. So on the site visit, and I think on your drawings, the mining of the gravel is going into the hill that's going up from that platform where all the processing is today, right? So we're not digging down, you're basically cutting away all the topsoil and the trees and everything else, and then getting to the rock ledge. And that's what you're doing at different points in time, going, I don't know if you're coming top down or bottom up, but you're going into that ledge. So what I have trouble getting my mind around is when we talk about reclamation, what are we reclaiming? Because I don't think you're going to rebuild plants and earth and soil and an environment on now these cliffs.
You will have ledge face. There will be series of different varying ledge faces as you kind of progress up the hill. The reclamation is the pit floor. So you'll have your topsoil be brought back, and that 5 acres that was disturbed will now be growing soil for woods to occur, or, there's a lot of things you can do with these type of developments, potentially, homes someday or whatever. I don't know what will be in 20 years from now, but there will be ledge face out there. Yep.
So the reclamation only is associated with the 5 acres? That's the only thing that gets reclaimed? Everything else will
Each period.
be rock?
Yeah, I mean, the vertical ledge face, it doesn't quantify for much acreage. It could only be, it's vertical.
Vertical acreage.
It's vertical acreage, right? Sure, we don't necessarily count that, but like vertical acreage, yes, there is a 30-foot, 50-foot high ledge face. You find that in basically any quarry in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think of quarries and you're going down into a quarry, but here we're going up into a quarry.
Yeah,
So
I
to
mean,
speak.
going down into a quarry is not, I wouldn't say that that's as common. If you go down into a quarry, you end up just having a man-made lake.
Yeah.
It's not fed by anything, and it ends up becoming stagnant water that is not very nice. It's not a natural lake. So you don't see too many dug deep ponds. Most of the time, you're cutting into the hill cutting into the hill.
Okay, and can you remind me that from the 5 acres that is going to be reclaimed from that flat area to when this is done, to the top of the ledge is all in is how tall?
So each one varies. Let's see. Here. So period 1, you're looking at about 40 feet. period 2, we're looking at about, I don't know the exact, maybe 60-ish. And each one, as you kind of go up, just kind of varies. I can get you the top, but I would say between 30 and 60 feet.
Each times how many? 8?
3.
3. Oh, 3. Okay. So 180, 200 feet, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a large, between these two periods, you have, 200 feet in between each ledge, and then between this period 2 and the period that's up here, I mean, there's a substantial amount of, probably 500, 600 feet of woods in between those two.
Yeah, those black areas, sorry, Justin Daigneault with Granite Engineering. Those black lines kind of represent where that ledge would be. So, and the colored areas are what would be reclaimed.
Ms. Visani?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you talk a little bit about your findings, or if you haven't had findings yet, when we will see findings, or maybe they're in here in the 100 pages I have, and I can't find them, for groundwater quality results?
Groundwater quality results.
So within the half mile that you're required to do some groundwater testing, I just don't see anything in here.
I can answer that. I believe the way the regulation is written, that once we receive permit approval, we have to do 2 baseline rounds of groundwater monitoring. And that's written into our groundwater monitoring plan for the acid mine drainage. And then also, we'd have to do the domestic water well sampling for anyone that's within 1/2 mile of the active site. So that's something that comes after we get permit approval and we get AOT approval. So we don't want to jump ahead and start doing that and kind of alerting people and then, have it fall through or something. But that's definitely something that has to happen and will occur.
The groundwater is essentially for the blasting aspect of things. So prior to blasting, we build a baseline. And then during and after the activities of blasting, we test the wells that are within that area to make sure that there is no groundwater.
And had you, follow-up question, you had done some blasting before there?
Nope.
Not anywhere on this site in the 300 acres, there's been no blasting?
There was blasting on the Sullivan side of things.
The Sullivan side
Yep.
of things, okay. And you had to do the groundwater testing for the Sullivan side?
That area did not exceed, or at least the thought was not exceed the requirements for having to do that.
Okay.
I don't know if the blaster did. We weren't involved with the blasting of that.
Okay. And then once those are done, where are those stored?
The results?
Yeah.
So,
You, so you,
gonna say. So, all the results for the AOT portion of it go to the state, and those are recorded annually, and obviously the city will get a copy of them, and I think that we wrote into our report within 45 days of us receiving the sample results, we'll give them to you. So there's kind of 2 different things we're looking at whenever we talk about monitoring the groundwater. We're looking at the acid mine drainage stuff on site, which is a very robust monitoring program, quarterly, monitoring for the groundwater and the surface water, and also some monthly monitoring just for the stormwater drainage. And then the domestic water well sampling, which I believe only happens once a year. And those results all, first of all, they get held with me, and then they get held with you guys, and then also at the state.
Last question on this. Do you know approximately how many landowners in Keene are within the half mile?
sure. There's on sheet 4, there's a context plan. It shows an aerial, and then it shows you, the little dots on the plan would be the wells. The radius that is shown for this plan is 1 mile. So if you were looking at half of that radius, you're probably at 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 7.
7, okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time, I'd like to invite staff to provide their comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Megan Fortson, planner. So just to provide the board with some additional background information as to what happened between the July 28th Planning Board meeting and this evening's meeting. You may remember that we had selected Sanborn Head and Associates to serve as the third-party hydrogeology consultant for this application to review it on your behalf just a few days prior to the July 28th Planning Board meeting. And the applicant during that meeting had requested a continuation to allow both them and the consultant sufficient time to prepare and review updated materials in preparation for the meeting this evening. And so between then and now, we've gone through couple different review iterations of the applicant submitting some updated materials like updated plans, their hydrogeologic analysis, and their stormwater report. And we met last Wednesday as a group with city staff, the consultants, and the applicant's team to go through sort of what we suspected might be the final round of revisions. And both Chad Brannon from Fieldstone Land Consultants and Russ Abel, who's attending remotely tonight, who has been taking care of the third-party hydrogeology review with his team, felt comfortable with the project really moving forward with the next step in its presentation, which is the applicant presenting to you tonight. Chad did not have any questions. Basically, he felt that as though the applicant had satisfied all of the comments that he had provided in previous memos. Mr. Abel did have a few comments related to stormwater infiltration during period 1 as well as period 8. Those two periods are right next to one another because the applicant will be working up the hill and then working back down. That's going to be the cycle of the excavation. So we have included both of those conditions in the recommended motion for this evening. I'm just going to quickly run through the recommended conditions of approval with the board. And as a reminder, there were originally 4 waiver requests for this application. 1 related to the reduced surface water buffer, 1 related to the minimum excavation area, 1 related to acid mine drainage, and then 1 related to excavation below the water table. Neither of the consultants, after reviewing the updated materials, felt that the waiver related to excavation below the water table was necessary anymore because the applicant is going to ensure that they're maintaining that 6-foot buffer between the seasonal high groundwater table and where they're excavating as required by your regulations. So if the board is inclined to approve the application, the recommended conditions of approval to be met prior to final approval and signature of the plans would be that the owner's signature appears on the plans, the submittal of paper and digital copies of the final plans, the submittal of a security for sedimentation and erosion control, stormwater management and reclamation for the first permit period of work. The applicant or owner shall pay all outstanding third-party consultant fees, the submittal of all required state and federal permits, and the inclusion of the approval number for these permits on the cover sheet of the plan set, and the inclusion of the waivers and conditional use permits with the results also added to the cover sheet. Subsequent to final approval, staff recommends the following conditions, which is that erosion, sediment control, and drainage measures be installed and maintained prior to the commencement of work and throughout the entirety of the project. Over the life of the excavation permit and any renewal thereof, the applicant shall provide monthly inspections by a qualified third-party licensed professional in the state of New Hampshire, and that would be for erosion and sedimentation control to test pH and stormwater runoff, and reports for these inspections shall be submitted to community development. And then over the life of the excavation permit and any renewal thereof, in accordance with section 25.3.4.c, the applicant shall monitor groundwater levels and surface water levels on a monthly basis to determine the extent to which there are any adverse impacts. Sort of subconditions are that the applicant shall notify the community development department within 24 hours of any adverse impacts. The applicant shall implement the approved protocol for providing replacement water supplies for any water supplies that are disrupted. And then the 2 conditions that I had mentioned that were recommended by our hydrogeology consultant were prior to the commencement of work within period 1, or I'm sorry, not prior to the commencement, but in spring of 2026 that they measure the seasonal high groundwater table elevations in permit period 1 to ensure that that 6-foot distance is going to be maintained. And then prior to the commencement of work in period 8, which won't be for a number of years, they test the water levels in one of the bedrock monitoring wells to again ensure that they're maintaining that 6-foot buffer. And then ongoing monitoring shall be conducted semi-annually and for a period of not less than 2 years following the cessation of excavation activities and reclamation of the site. And then 6 months prior to the commencement of work on the next permit period. So we're going to have 8 permit periods. 6 months prior to them starting work on, say, period 2, they're going to be coming before the planning board to provide the planning board with an update on the status of the project, make sure that everything is progressing as originally approved by the planning board, and then to post their security for that next phase of the work. And then excavation activity can only occur between certain hours, 7 to 5, Monday to Friday. The area of unreclaimed, inactive, and excavation area shall not exceed 12 acres. And then at the end of all excavation operations, the site shall be reclaimed and monitored in accordance with section 25.4 of the Land Development Code. So I know that's quite a laundry list of conditions that I just went through, but this is obviously a complicated application, and we want to make sure that we're including all of the necessary items to allow staff, present and future, and board members present and future, to make sure that we stay on top of this project and feel comfortable approving it. I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, Mr. Abel is here as well to answer the more technical applications, because he largely is the one that we're relying on for this review.
Is that it, Ms. Forsyth? Okay, thank you. Questions for staff? Counselor Remy?
Thank you. On the monitoring for 1 and 8 in that condition, I didn't get a chance to read it before, but does it include that they're reporting that back to us, so that'd be part of the review process?
Correct, so yes. Reporting it back to city staff to
Yeah,
ensure
not to the
that.
planning board, but to city
Correct,
staff.
yeah.
It's a lot of conditions for us to memorize. That's where it probably would have been good to have a printout of this one with the number of conditions we have.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so the chair and the vice chair have copies of it. I apologize, we didn't, we
Yeah.
figured the people making the motions could
That's what the mayor's
have
looking
copies
at,
of it.
too.
Yeah,
but
it's hard to keep track of everything you
Yeah.
just said.
If anybody, does anybody else want a copy? I do have an extra copy if people want to share. Okay.
Can I ask for some clarification on one of those items? The 7 to 5, I was surprised just it was in a condition because it's in the code. That's the hours. And then there is some Saturday morning activity that can happen. It's not blasting or anything. So I just want to make sure that the condition just matches the Keene code, and that they're going to be following that.
Yeah,
So-
I think it states excavation activities.
Right, it's in the code, so the Saturday, it still allows the applicant to comply with the code for the Saturday morning activities as well.
Yeah, Ms. Fortson, you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, the Mr. Chair is correct in that it does, in the condition, specify excavation activities shall occur between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. And I think that specific section of the code states that there's Saturday between like 8 and 12 or somewhere around those times, there is, oh, here we go. The sale and loading of stockpiled materials may also occur from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. However, no other excavation activities shall be permitted on this day.
Okay.
Yes,
Just wanted
that's
to
allowed to
clarify,
occur.
that didn't knock out that Saturday.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Hafer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Among the things that, the number of things around monitoring in place is great. The reporting, I did follow up to make sure, this is reported to, reported the state to the city of Keene. I guess sort of two questions, if I may. One is the periods. You mentioned I'll state both the questions. Question one is the periods, and coming back to the planning board in between periods. What sort of teeth does the planning board and city of Keene have in those in-between periods for, is there, things went vastly different than we thought, or, I don't know, the project became unprofitable, or remediation become unprofitable, and there needs to be changes. What sort of safety
Yeah, if I
valves?
could, if you recall last meeting, we delegated the enforcement to code enforcement in Keene, the city staff.
Right,
So that's who would be monitoring in between periods.
right, but Megan just said that the applicant also comes back to us and presents to us between each period, is that true?
Yep, that is correct.
Yeah, and so do we still have standing to affect the process, I guess, at that point?
We have standing to affect the next period,
Yeah.
starting.
Yeah, that's my question.
Correct.
Okay, so if things are not going well, we get
I
the
mean,
city
and
of,
code enforcement will handle anything on something that's already been approved.
okay.
Counselor Remy?
Okay, and so does the city of Keene feel good about its ability to do all this monitoring through code enforcement? Like, if it's a big, complicated project, are we feeling good about our ability to monitor?
Yep,
Thank you. This is Megan Fortson, planner again. So let me just read to you the exact language of that condition,
Thanks.
because I think it might answer those questions, and I apologize that we don't have more copies of the recommended motions for people. Lesson learned. But the condition related to the inspections and permit renewal says that 6 months prior to the commencement of work for the next permit period, the property owner shall submit a permit renewal application for review and approval by the planning board and sufficient security to cover the cost of sedimentation and erosion control, stormwater management, and reclamation for the next permit period of work to be completed. So really the intent behind that condition is to ensure that, like you said, 6 months before, we'll just use period 1 as an example, when they're 6 months prior to the commencement of work on period 2, they'll be coming back to the planning board for a permit renewal. And the intent behind that is for them to be able to provide an update on the board on the status of the current period that they're working on, how they anticipate the next period will go. If there were to be any substantial change in the scope of the project, like, okay, we expect to get more material, or we're going to be excavating at a different time frame and rate than we had initially expected to, that's something that could either fall into the category of being a minor amendment and could potentially be reviewed by staff, or if it was an increased rate, a faster time frame for excavation, that's something that could potentially be a major permit amendment, and that would be reviewed by the planning board.
Great,
So,
thank you very much.
I hope that answers your question.
Counselor Remy?
Thank you. Kind of tacking onto that, because a lot of the questions we had for the applicant were around the 25.3.6, because none of us are super familiar with, acid forming elements. It's not in our day jobs. Is that something where if that was seen to start happening for whatever reason, that at that period too, we would have the opportunity to review, well, it is happening and now we need to deal with it in a different way?
Yeah, go ahead, Meg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I mean, if it starts to be an issue, that's why they have their acid mine drainage monitoring plan in place, so that they're taking those actions right away and coming to staff and figuring out what needs to happen as a result of that. And that's something that would be reported to the board, yeah, as part of the next permit renewal, if not sooner than that.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Master Giovanni?
I think the applicant did a good job. I mean, it seems like all the pieces are in place, but what about regional impact? Like, if there is regional impact, what liability does the city have in that case?
So this is Megan Fortson, planner again. Back in December, I don't remember what the exact, it was December 16th. The applicant and their team had come before the planning board for advice and comment to see if the board felt that this project was going to be a development of regional impact. And at that time, you had said that it was. And so basically, once an application was submitted and it was accepted as complete, we noticed the other community which in this case was Sullivan, notifying them, as well as our local regional planning commission, I'm sorry, in accordance with that RSA. So it's already been determined that it's a development of regional impact.
And just to, Evan Clements, planner, just to talk about that a little bit more, the city doesn't necessarily have liability with other towns in the most literal sense. The idea sort of is that the applicant move forward, they present their application, we make a decision on it, if so approved, and they move forward and they're operating as prescribed, there is no real liability on the city if the applicant is no longer operating within the terms of their permit. There is remedy for that, both in local ordinance and in state statute. But again, it's not like the town of Sullivan is gonna, not to be hyperbolic, sue the city because of a private actor on private property. Is that kind of what your concern was?
Yeah, a little bit. I remember when the regional impact issue was brought forward, it was from an issue in like Dover or something like that, where it was discovered that there was a regional impact on a certain project. And that was in caution put into place here at some point. So I just, I'm just bringing it up. I just want to make sure the city's covered.
Yeah, if memory serves, the situation you're referring to was the courts ruled, or there was an issue with the project that was approved, and it went to litigation, it went to the courts, the courts analyzed the procedure of the planning board of that municipality, and they sort of determined that while the regional impact was not explicitly discussed by that board, it was sort of implied that the board did consider it and then made the determination that that specific project did not have regional impact. And then the courts kind of gave every municipality in the state the hairy eyeball and said, hey, if you don't make a decision on every single application if it has regional impact or not, the courts may come back and rule either your approval or your denial as invalid and kick that application right back to the beginning. So that's kind of why we do a determination of regional impact for every single application that comes before the board.
Mr. Cost?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, we heard a lot of information from the applicant and their engineers, and we have a lot of stuff that we've read or to read. And I'm just wondering, is this the right time to ask Mr. Abel to kind of hear his, I know we have a report from him, but just to hear his sense of, maybe explain to us what he views and just go through a quick narrative so that we hear it from the hydrogeologist who looked at this as well?
Yeah, I'm fine with that if Mr. Abel is. I mean, his stuff is summarized in a written report.
I know, some people learn by listening and some by reading and some, so I'm just, would like to cover bases.
Mr. Abel, if you wouldn't mind giving us a few minutes of your time.
I'd be happy to. This is Russ Abel with Sanborn Head. So I reviewed the application really for two primary reasons. One was to look at the two waivers that mostly applied to hydrogeology. One is the waiver that has been withdrawn, the 6 feet below, or excavation below water table. And the second was the acid mine drainage concern. And so, as we noted in the, or as Megan Fortson noted in the conditions, there is a condition related to understanding where the seasonal high water table is. So, groundwater can be at a higher level or a lower level depending on precipitation, time of year, things of that sort. And so the condition there is related to having information collected during the high water table conditions, more in the springtime when we have a lot of rainfall, snow melt, things of that sort, just so that the applicant can confirm that their proposed excavation grades will maintain that compliance of 6 feet above the water table. because they just don't have that data right now based on the timing in which they collected their information, just based on the time that the work was done. And so the applicant is, in my opinion, is satisfied the understanding of where the water table is currently throughout the area and have designed appropriately to address that. And then with that condition to collect water in a high water table conditions, they will then confirm where the water table is, and then if needed, they would modify their excavation grades to be sure they meet that 6 feet above the water table. If it's different than what we already understand. So it's basically a confirmation of what is understood at this time, that extra condition data, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you for me. Thank you.
And then for the, I'm sorry, are there any other questions related maybe to that piece before I move on to acid mine drainage?
Mayor Khan.
Yeah, so it's sort of after the fact, the monitoring.
But the monitoring will occur before they do any excavation in those
How would you
areas?
know that 6 feet, if you hit the high water table and it was 6 feet below, if it was 6 feet above before you hit the high water table, now you hit the high water table, what's the remedial action? It's just in the next period or next phase?
They're going to do the monitoring before they start the excavation in those periods, so that they'll understand where the water table is before they start the excavation process. So they're going to install a well in period 1,
Okay.
and that'll be measured in the springtime so that they can understand where the high water table is, and confirm that there's not a concern there. So I don't think the real measure, they would then, if, again, it's a confirmation. So based on the information they have collected to date and their understanding of the area and my review of what they've provided, I agree that it's likely that that the water table is in the general area they expect it to be. This is a confirmation just to confirm that, to make sure that we're not missing something because we don't have the data in the right time. But that will happen before the excavation occurs in that area, so that they can modify their pit floor depth if they need to, if they get a result that's not similar to what they expect at this time, if that makes sense.
It does, just to, if I might.
Yep, please.
And that evidence would be available to our staff and to the planning board at the point that the next phase decision comes back to us.
I can answer that. So with the compliance hearing for each transition from period to period, that is a perfect example of, for lack of a better term, a hiccup. So say, I think the most extreme situation of that is that the seasonal high is 6 feet higher than anticipated. The applicant would be aware of it because of this monitoring well. They would make an adjustment in their practice to remain in compliance with our regulations. When they come in for the compliance hearing, if they haven't already contacted staff to say like, hey, just FYI, this happened, this is what we've done. One of the questions you would be asking the applicant is, has anything unforeseen taken place during the last period? And then that would be a perfect opportunity for the applicant to say, hey, you remember that monitoring well that we put in? This is what happened. This is the steps we took to remain in compliance, and we haven't had any issues since, if that answers your question.
I wanted to understand the process, and thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, Ms. Heiss, did you have a question for staff?
I would just like to make some clarification on this while we're talking about some of these conditions, if I could.
I'm sorry, you'd like to clarify something or ask a question?
I'd like to clarify some, well, it's a question and clarification at the same time, if I may. May I be
Okay.
recognized? Thank you. I wanted to focus on this, Evan just called it the compliance hearing, and we've heard it's kind of a permit, overview, but then we also use the word permit application. So I just want to be clear, because we've talked about it with staff, that the expectation is this is not, unless we have to go for a minor or a major change, this step in between the permit periods is really, I think, the language, the compliance hearing is more in line of what I think we were considering it is. And I know this project goes on for a long time, and nobody in this room may be here when one of these compliance hearings happens. So I just want to make sure the language is clear that it's not a new permit, and it's not a whole permit process, but it's just to make sure whatever compliance was required under the conditions have been met, such that kind of the door opens for the next period to do. And I guess I would ask staff if that's their understanding, and then make sure the language is appropriate.
Ms. Fortson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the language specifically stated in the recommended motion is permit renewal period. And so to answer some questions or concerns that maybe the board has sort of jumping around in your heads, prior to that sort of permit renewal, one thing that will be done, in addition to all of the logs and plans and reports that we're going to be regularly receiving as part of this approval, would be the performance of a site visit to make sure that the site appears to be in compliance with the approved plans. So we'll be getting the update on them from them on the previous permit period, making sure that the site looks like there's no active violations or anything like that. And then they'll be going before the board for a permit renewal.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Remy?
I just want to try to restate that the way my brain works to make sure I understand. So the idea would be, unless there was a change being asked for in the timing or some kind of an issue that came up, the intent would be to say, okay, you're good, you're paying the next money for the next thing. It's not meant to be a redo of this process every time. It is you've met all the requirements, you've met the plan, you're not asking for changes, you're going to pay your next check and we're good.
That's correct. The applicant's intent for this application is to get approval for the entire project, with permit renewals to periodically check in on the progression of the operation as it moves through the hill.
Thank you. That's what I understood. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Mr. Engel?
Is staff aware of how the town of Sullivan is approaching this application? You know, if we decide to approve it, but the town of Sullivan is taking some action, will that halt process in any way, or like how does that all happen?
Yeah, Ms. Fortson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Clemens, feel free to jump in if you so feel the need. So my understanding was that the town of Sullivan, they need a special exception to be able to operate a gravel pit on the Sullivan lots. And I think that the hearing for that request had been delayed sort of until after the decision of this board. So should their board decide to deny that and the applicant isn't allowed to do work, I mean, it's possible that maybe they would want to rework their plan with us to modify the proposed areas in which they're excavating. But as of this point, I think Sullivan is kind of waiting to see what Keene is doing.
Yeah, and it's the responsibility of this board to act on the application that is before you. So what other towns may or may not choose to do in regards to portions of this project located within their limits is not necessarily germane to our decision on this application. But, and then just to build on what Ms. Fortson just said, that if another part of this project is changed due to the decisions of other municipalities, the applicant may need to come back to adjust how they intend to move forward, and then we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
Mr. Cost?
I didn't want to lose, we could talk more about whatever, but I didn't want to lose track. Mr. Abel was also then going to talk about acid mine drainage. We
Yep,
talked
no, I
about
got
that,
it.
so.
Yep, thank you.
Chair, can I just
Yes,
interject one
Ms.
more point?
Fortson, please.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that Councilor Remy and anybody else who was a little bit confused about the permit renewal versus major amendment versus minor amendment. So if the applicant wishes to continue their excavation project, They cannot propose any modifications to the size or location of the excavation, the rate of removal, or the plan for reclamation. Those are basically the three triggers. So as long as those three things aren't changing, they can just come back for a regular permit renewal. If there were any changes proposed to location or size of excavation, rate of removal, they would need to potentially go through a minor amendment or a major amendment process instead.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Abel, thanks for your patience. We'll get back to you on the toxic or acid potential.
Yes, so that was the other major thing that I was asked to look at. And, I agree with what I've heard today and what is consistent, was presented in the documentation, things of that sort, that, acid mine drainage is rather uncommon in New Hampshire, particularly in the types of rocks that we have here. There is pyrite in some of the rocks, so that potential is there. The testing has indicated there's some potential. But I feel comfortable with the applicant's plans to address acid mine drainage if it does, if information that they're collecting shows that it's a concern and does develop during any of the various periods that they're going to be excavating in. And some of the changes in the monitoring plan that were discussed earlier were based on my recommendations, including some of the monthly monitoring for pH and things of that sort, just so that there's greater frequency of information to be able to catch it sooner if there is going to be a problem. I also recommended, which I think is part of their plans, that after a certain period of time or a certain time frame, I think it's about a year in each of the excavation areas, if you're not seeing acid mine drainage develop it by then, they can lower the frequency of data collection, because at that time it'll be unlikely that if you haven't seen it by then, it's not likely to occur. And so based on all of that, I feel very comfortable that their approach and plan and their actions, if they do see it, are appropriate. I do agree that there's not ways to guarantee that some of it might not get into the groundwater, right? Some of the either lower pH or some of the dissolved metals, but they have an action plan in place to stop that excavation and reclaim it if they have those problems, and that will then make whatever issue that might be to be a very short-lived issue that would then be resolved by stopping the excavation at that point. So based on that, I'm comfortable with the monitoring plan they have in place and the approach that will be protective of the groundwater and the surrounding environment during the excavation process.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Abel? I'd like to switch gear just a tiny bit, and I'm looking at Fieldstone's latest report, August 23rd, and to me, every box is checked with a possible exception I didn't hear explicitly in the staff report, and that is page 15. It's part of the plan review, item number 13 on the plan review. So Fieldstone highlighted basically the driveway where it goes into Route 9. And then I guess Granite Engineering has their response to that. And then in blue italics, Fieldstone has a further comment, which is kind of leaving it in staff's court as to, well, I guess I'll let you guys read it. Ms. Fortson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, this was comment number 13 is related to the fact that there's erosion, some erosion present based on aerial imagery on an adjacent portion of the site, which is part of the former Palmer Lodge, I believe, that operated on this property once upon a time. And so we did discuss this with the applicant. And we had basically, my understanding, and Mr. Cole or Mr. Daniel can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the understanding is that there was previously a stream that ran through here that was diverted to fill a pool that was on this property, and it was just never redirected back in the same location. And so we're aware of this, we've spoken with the applicant, but given that they're not proposing to modify this portion of the site at this time or as part of the excavation, that was something that we were gonna handle in the future as part of a separate potential site plan application for the development of more of a retail portion of the site. And Mr. Clements can
Yeah,
chime
and
in as well.
this is on an adjacent parcel that happens to be owned by the applicant, but is not directly associated with the earth excavation operation. And in some cases is an existing condition of the site, based on, as Ms. Fortson said, previous actions of a previous property owner.
Yeah, I only brought it up because the tenor of the response from Fieldstone was different than all of the others in his report.
And I think the intention of that was more of just like, you know, this was something that Mr. Brandon had come across during his review of the materials and just wanted to bring to the attention of staff. And I apologize, we probably should have asked him to provide a more clear response on that item, but it was, again, just more strictly informational and not necessarily associated with the scope of work proposed as part of this evening's application.
Well, your response is fine. That's, I think, what he was asking you to provide.
Yeah.
Some additional detail to the
Yes.
board. Yeah, okay. That's fine. That answers my question about that. Mayor Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to check before we move away from a staff report about a traffic analysis on Route 9. I haven't heard anything, or seen anything. What the chairman just pointed out is as much information as I'd seen prior to this meeting. So a sense of that, because I've had personal experiences here that haven't been pleasant, and if this is going to be a continuing work site, it does concern me if we don't have some information about distances and what kind of conditions need to be altered in order to accommodate whatever traffic we expect on the site.
Ms. Fortson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we did receive a traffic analysis, and that was back in December when we initially received the application. And it was actually the original traffic analysis that was performed when the application was previously approved in 2022. And the applicant, my understanding and my recollection was that they were not submitting an updated traffic analysis because they expected that the rate of removal was going to be the same on the property, so they weren't expecting a change in the number of vehicle trips to be generated as a result of this application. Again, I think that would be a good point to have the applicant clarify, excuse me. So the number of trucks going in and out of the site, they were estimating that it was going to be the same. It's obviously just going to be for a longer duration of years than was previously approved. I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense. I might question my personal experience versus, whatever was in the 2022 analysis. I confess not to have recalled that there was one.
Yeah.
And probably would appreciate some opportunity to take a look and see what that analysis said to us.
Since you're there, can you
I can
comment
talk.
on traffic?
Yeah, of course. As mentioned, the traffic study that was done in 2022, we found to be very accurate to what we were expecting out here. As mentioned, it was proposed to open up 7 acres according to that first phase. All the other phases that we're proposing are actually less than that, so there's only so much traffic that you can have on a site like this and make sure that it's continuing to be safe. So we're not proposing any traffic, we're just proposing that the traffic is going to be longer. You know, it's gonna be for more years as we continue through the periods. Mr. Mayor, you did ask for some extra signage, and we did make sure to accommodate that. You wanted trucks entering on the highway signs. We've got those spaced out, you know, hundreds of feet to make sure that safety is being upheld out there. But the traffic isn't significant, and this is a DOT jurisdictional roadway. And DOT has granted the driveway permit. They do monitor, and they have agreed with the traffic study back in 2022. So it is a DOT jurisdictional roadway, plenty of sight distance, and we got your additional signage.
I recall having asked for the signage, and I recall that, and you have put, and if I'm coming to Keene, you know, from an easterly direction, that signage I've seen. I think the condition that I'm most interested in or concerned about is the eastbound traffic and the hill that descends to your driveway site. And as one comes around that bend, it's a difficult place to observe, and because the condition that I experienced is not your truck, but the vehicle in front of me that saw your truck and had to slow down very quickly. And I did not have that kind of distance, and nor did I see your sign as a warning to the, you know, that I was approaching slowed or stopped vehicles. I think it's a difficult condition and one that I'm just pointing out because this is a public hearing.
No, and I appreciate that. I don't know where the signage is. Obviously, the signage that we placed strategically based on Mr. Mayor's comments were not necessarily relayed to Cody yet because it's part of the approved plan, or the proposed plan. But we have a sign that says trucks entering highway placed 425 feet. And I don't know where the current sign is. A lot of the times, construction sites will have signs closer to the driveway, so we will make sure to get that sign extended further to make sure to give as much warning. 425 feet exceeds the stopping sight distance requirements for you to stop going that speed, so it should be of adequate distance.
That might be why something updated or additional information about the current condition might be valuable, and I don't have the answer on this. There's no condition here. Your idea may in fact address the condition that I'm trying to convey, but I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm just a frequent flyer on that road, and
Understood.
if you're coming down that hill, you're accelerating and having to consciously observe a condition that you may not see.
Yep, we understand that.
And that's the blind spots. That's what's happening.
The traffic study was produced. It was obviously reviewed by your city engineer, and then DOT have multiple engineers that review the study plans, and they before issuing the permit. So we feel comfortable with the safety of it.
Councilor Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for staff. Given that this is a state highway, is this line within our purview at all, given that the state issued a driveway permit?
Ms. Fortson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the street access itself, no, it's not. They had to go through a separate process with the state to obtain that street access permit. You could potentially require as a precedent condition of approval the installation of additional signage, but that would have to be on the applicant's property. It's not something we can approve the installation of signage in the state right of way.
Highway,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what thank you. I was trying to scratch it. I don't know that we have the purview. I agree with the feedback that if you get surprised by a car stop there, it's surprising, but I just don't know if we're allowed to consider that in our decision.
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor Khan?
You may have just answered why I can't observe the signage when I'm going in an eastbound direction, because if it is on their property, it may not have enough distance to be observed in a timely way.
Might have to call your friends at the state.
Sorry?
Call your friends at the state.
Ms. Mastro Giovanni, did you have a comment or question?
I'm sure this was somewhere in the whole plan, but I just wanted to ask, probably again, is the rate of traffic of these trucks going to be the same as it is currently, or is it going to be greater given the expansion of the site? I know when I travel on Route 9, I haven't really come across an issue. I've seen a few trucks pulling out, in and out. And also, like, are they just regular dumps? Are they the bigger 10-wheel, trailer size trucks that are pulling in and out of there? Are they currently the bigger trailers now?
Some of everything. There's
Some
a
of
mixture. As I, kind of previously stated, the traffic should remain the same. 2022 approved 7 acres. We're only proposing periods of a maximum of 5 acres. So there's potential that it will stay the same, potential it decreases. It's just going to be for a longer duration, but not more.
Okay, so there's no more traffic coming in and out, it's just for a longer duration?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, so now we're going to move to the public portion. So may I just ask for a show of hands for who in the audience intends or would like to speak? Okay. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think it would be reasonable to allow everyone 5 minutes, if you would like. You don't have to take 5, but I will allow 5 minutes. And we're going to use the same timing mechanism we used last month. And I will give everyone a chance to speak for the first time, and then, if need be, I'll recognize individuals for a second time. I would like to just draw your attention to the fact that I would appreciate it if you could focus your comments on the new material that we received this month, both the written material as well as some of the presentations you've heard, both from staff's consultant, and the applicant. So keeping that in mind, I'm not going to be really hard line about that, but I would appreciate it if we did focus on the new material. Okay? So, with that, I would, I don't know if there's any particular order, but I will invite whoever would like to go first to come forward. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, sorry. Jeez.
Hello, everybody.
That's why I'm wearing these.
Yes. Wanted to ask if I may sit. I
Yeah,
have a
I
broken
need to get your
toe.
name and address, please.
Yes. My name is Yulia Sokol. I am a Sullivan resident, and I am your next-door neighbor. My house is on the far side of Sullivan, close to Gilsum, and I am exactly 2 miles away from the proposed site. And today I just wanted once more, this is my 4th meeting, to concentrate everybody's attention to the regional impact of this project. And I propose, on behalf of my friends and neighbors who couldn't be here today, that we small towns of New Hampshire can help each other as we develop in 21st century. And I'm talking about the towns of Gilsum, Sullivan, Roxbury, and Keene. Keene being our biggest next-door neighbor. What people come to New Hampshire for is recreation, tourism, nature. And I looked up the current numbers. 11.5 million people come every year to the state of New Hampshire for tourism. It is $5.6 billion industry every year. and we want to preserve that beauty and not to develop a full-scale industrial quarry so close to so many people. Keene residents will be affected. Roxbury, we in Sullivan will be devastated, to tell you the truth. And when it comes to the regional impacts, wanted to talk about roads for a second. We live right now with the project which is 5 or 6 times smaller on Route 10 in Gilsum. Every time I have to go through Gilsum, I have to close windows because all this summer when it's dry and hot, you're driving through a huge cloud of dust. And volunteers in the town of Gilsum on one day counted 100 trucks coming through. And at our Sullivan meeting, Gordon Brothers and G2 Holdings told us that the number of trucks which will be leaving this site would be between 60 and 80 per day, but we need to make sure that we double it because it's in and out. And our roads, Route 10 and Route 9, is our common good, and that would be affected. Also, during the summer, and I work from home, it means I don't drive every day. I drove on Old Sullivan Road, which is a dirt road in Sullivan, 3 times behind a very large gravel truck, which shouldn't be there. And also wanted to bring to everybody's attention, I'm very involved with the local art community. Apple Hill Center for Chamber Music on the border of Sullivan and Nelson, also Ashwell concerts and many other amazing musicians. And this development would be 2 miles as the crow flies from Apple Hill. I live 2 miles across the forest from Route 10 development, and I can hear every morning beep, 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 and I do feel blasts. It means anybody who lives within the 2-mile radius, like I am, will be hearing daily industrial size quarry operations. That will definitely kill the traffic to Keene, I can imagine, because Apple Hill people, Nelson, they will be all going shopping to Peterborough. Nobody will be driving on Route 9. People from my neck of the woods, they probably will drive to Walpole. It's just 16 miles versus 12 miles. It's why I actually do care for Keene, not just 640 residents of Sullivan. I always wanted Keene to be, well, at least as good or even better than Peterborough, because nobody comes to Keene, it seems like, for recreation. Everybody goes to Peterborough. But if we are having 2 highways, Route 10 and Route 9, clogged with heavy trucks full of gravel, and Monday through Saturday, beep, 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 and boom, 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 nobody will be coming to us, neither to Keene or Sullivan. And again, people who support this project from the community, I'm not talking about the applicant. Applicants have their own excellent, presentation, but people who care about this project from our community, please let me know if you are living 2 miles or less from the project, because everybody who does, live so close, we will be all affected. And lastly, another thing, and I understood all the reasoning. If you need to have so many exemptions, perhaps it is not the best project for our area. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, so that was an example of the same information we heard last meeting. So what I really would like to emphasize is we could focus on the new information. So who would like to be next?
Hello. My name is Jody Newell. I'm a resident of Keene, 32 Leverett Street in Keene. And, you know, I was thinking about whether or not I would come tonight and what would be valuable for me to say. But in hearing earlier today about the fact that there are two people who actually live in Keene who are direct abutters, and the, you know, somehow the assertion that we should only listen to those two people because they're abutters in Keene, and this is on the outskirts of Keene. So we, as Keene residents and, you know, as the Keene Planning Department, that we shouldn't necessarily pay as much attention to people who are on the outskirts or who are affected by the actions that we take and the permits that we give. That really bothered me in a way, because I think that we are good neighbors, and we should be good neighbors, and we should maintain that. And the idea of not listening to anyone else who is outside of the city lines and approving projects that happen within our city lines, if they only affect two Keene residents, is bizarre to me and kind of doesn't align with the values that I see in Keene. So I just wanted to come and say that, and to pass on the perspective to people who are actually directly impacted by this. So thank you.
Thank you.
How do I turn this on?
It should be on already.
I think I turned it off. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Jim Manley, Sullivan resident, major abutter to G2. Chairman, I'd like to keep this to what was presented tonight, but I think what's more important is what was not presented tonight. Okay, Attorney Ice had basically belittled myself and other residents and promised answers to questions, okay? Two questions that I raised back in February. One is, why is a visualization of the end state not been provided? Okay, I've come to enough of these meetings to see that it's relatively common to see the visualization of the end state of the project. This is very easy. The elevation data is available in digital form. The blueprints could be digitized. A three-dimensional visualization could easily be made. I've asked for this since February, yet to see it. A second question that I raised back in February is, and it's on page 4 of their plan, why was a 1-mile radius illustrated around the perimeter of the site, okay? And for a couple reasons. I think, as this young lady said here, okay, if you only care about Keene, why is it just like a semicircle, not a radius? But why a 1-mile radius when your own regs specify the 2,500 feet, half mile? RSA 155 specifies 2,200 feet, okay? This is really important. Why? Because within the 2,500 foot radius, there's at least 25 households, okay? Now, you know, beyond the environmental and aesthetic considerations, this decision comes down to money, okay? G2 paid a mere $500 an acre for 300 acres, $150,000. So if you take 150,000 times 25 households, okay, that's a little under 4 million. I think it's safe to assume that the actual property values are at least 2 to 3 times that. So call it 10 million. Okay, they paid 150,000. They've made their money on that property. What we've heard from Gilsum is there is no liability insurance. If something happens, you're on your own. Okay, so what are these 25 households to do? Half of them probably are retirees, as am I. You know, we're talking about well contamination, foundation damage, quality of life impact. Gilsum's having issues with dust and noise, okay? They're not using water trucks to mitigate the dust, okay? All you have to do is drive up Route 10 and see an example of how they like to do business. I'm concerned because there was a glint in the geologist's eyes when he said that Nims Hill is not composed of schist, but of solid crystalline rock. And boy, this will make great gravel. It is also a great transmission media for seismic energy. Okay, so in the back of my mind, we've never gotten the answer to why the 1 mile radius. Okay, but we have heard from people that are close to the Gilsum mine. Are they in the seismic impact zone? Okay, again, I've asked this question for 6 months now, yet to get an answer. Okay, I would say that RSA 155E is pretty clear on 2 major points. Okay, quarry operations are not to be seen except for the access road. As Granite Engineering has pointed out, traffic considerations aside, I have no problem with their access road. But in fact, you can see the quarry operations if you're traveling westbound. When you come around and you see the sign for Holton Ledge Road, their current operations are very visible. This is just going to be much, much worse, okay? And then finally, 155E is pretty adamant about adverse impact to property values. So once again, I mean, you need to take that into consideration. Okay, you're throwing people under the bus for something that they got for a steal. Anyway, I hope you make the right decision, because if this goes through, it's going to be a permanent scar on Granite Gorge, part of your legacy. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Matt Keene. I am a Dublin resident. I am also president of Monadnock Habitat for Humanity. And this is new information I'd like to present, this on behalf of the Gordons and how generous they have been to us and our organization. We also occupy that site at no charge for our marketplace restore concept. They've been very good to us and offered us that facility at no charge, and to develop the site beside it for our potential site for the full restore building. That's how we raise money to build homes for workforce housing. And I think it came up earlier today about comments about why is this a business for profit. I'm not sure how profitable it is with all these experts that they have to pay so far, but they have been very generous, and I think that's what gives them the generosity, is that they're a business. They're making money to give back to the community. I've known them for many years. They're just good people that are trying to do a good thing, and we need the gravel for the roads and everything that we're all talking about here, and the infrastructure. So I just wanted to speak in favor and in support of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, Michael Brooks, 32 Tyler Lane in Sullivan. I think I'm a bit of a unicorn here because I'm a Sullivan resident that's actually in favor of the project. We need gravel. I know Gordon Gravel. I've been a customer. They've been quick, responsive, very good company to work with. They give a discount to Sullivan due to the proximity, so the town enjoys cheaper building materials, less travel time to deliver. So yes, in general, I'm in favor for the project. A couple things I would like a little bit more information on. One is, I understand there's ledge face. I'd like to know if there's any safety aspects. My main concern is after the reclamation, if this is going to be a danger that's left behind. Also, I think I heard that there were funds put aside throughout the project to cover the cost of reclamation, but that's my main concern, is being a good steward of the land once the project's over. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Friedrich Buckel. I'm an attorney. I represent Mr. Manley, and I just want to talk about some things that came up tonight. Attorney Ice started off her presentation talking about jurisdiction and not in my backyard. And my response to that is the New Hampshire legislature and the Supreme Court have decided that when it comes to excavation issues like this, not in my backyard matters. And what we do is we're going to take a step back, because if you look at RSA 155E, what you'll find is New Hampshire public policy that yes, gravel pits are necessary, but we don't want them in our backyard. The overall takeaway from the statute is, in addition to the technical things that we talked about tonight, is we don't want to be able to see these things from the road. Now, Mr. Manley talked about the absence of evidence. I believe the engineer said very carefully, when you're standing right at the driveway, you won't be able to see it, okay? But as you drive along Route 9, you will be able to see it, and you're going to have up to 200-foot cliffs created on top of what you see today. And the engineer also accurately said that does not need to be reclaimed. The floor of the pit is it. You're going to approve, if you're so inclined, 200-foot cliffs in Granite Gorge. That's the result, and there's nothing anybody can ever say about reclaiming it, because they don't have to. The statute says you don't have to reclaim ledge face, and you don't. It will not be reclaimed. You are going to approve face ledge. Regarding the AMD, I think the statement was the rocks there don't have any porosity. Well, whether it's granite or gneiss, there is porosity, because I think the statement was we don't have to worry about, we do have metals, but we have water and we air, but we don't have the porosity. There's porosity there. And what bothers me is that the seasonal water table elevation has not yet been determined. It's a little bit too convenient. This is the first time I've seen an applicant come in with the critical data missing. I just point that out for you. I believe the mayor pointed out that concern. Another issue that staff brought up, they were talking about Sullivan. What does Sullivan have to do? Well, Sullivan's going to determine whether or not to approve a special exception, but so too will Keene, because in addition to approval under this board's jurisdiction, the Keene LDC requires a special exception from the zoning board too. So that is something else that's going to happen. Even if this board does approve it, the applicant still goes to the zoning board for a special exception request. I don't want that to be overlooked at all. That's clear in your code. You can turn to section 3.15 and section 8.18B4. And even though there may have been a prior special exception in 22, because this proposal intends to expand it, the applicant has to go back under section 28.6.8. And that's an important thing that this board should not overlook. We've talked about the visibility. The other thing I want to talk about, because trips came up, and last meeting I provided a handout of what the applicant stated to this board in 2022, 30 to 40 loads a day. Check with staff, don't take my word for it, but when you drive to the supermarket, that's one trip. To the supermarket and back, that's two trips. That's the way you count trips when you count traffic. So in 2022, the applicant says 30 to 40 truckloads a day. Then they go to Sullivan and they say, we're going to be upwards of 80 loads a day. That's 160 trips. And that's consistent with what testimony you've heard at this meeting and the last meeting. That was a misrepresentation to this board. They're planning to increase the volume daily and for 5 years, or I'm sorry, for the duration of the project. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion. Thank you. And we will move to deliberation. So I know we have a rather lengthy motion. Would someone care to plow their way through that?
Do we want to talk about it first? Just if there's any other, in case we want to make any changes to it before we read it twice?
Okay, sure, if you'd like. Because
Just,
we have the waivers to address first.
yeah.
Are we addressing all three or no?
3 waivers, yep.
Yeah, we are addressing
Yep.
all three, so.
Yep.
I thought she said.
No, that's correct. The one that they don't have is the 6 foot of
Oh, they didn't put it on.
the groundwater. All right, so,
I only had one comment, and
All
that
right.
was on condition 1E. It's kind of implied in the way it's written, but it just says submittal of state and federal permits. The approval numbers should be added to the cover sheet, but I wanted to say submittal and approval of, or even get rid of submittal and just say approval of all state and federal permits. Just because submitting them doesn't necessarily meet the condition necessarily, because it also requires approval. You could just change it to approval. Approval of all state and federal permits.
Excuse me, this is Megan Bortson, planner. Submittal of all approved submittal of copies of all approved required state and federal permits, something like that,
Okay, yeah.
should be sufficient.
And that's it, just to say, like, we got a copy of the approved permits. It's implied, I was reading it as that they had submitted for the permits to the state or the Fed, but hadn't necessarily gotten approval yet. That's how I was reading that originally, so I appreciate the clarification. Other than that, the conditions seem to make sense that are put in here, but I know we have to address the waivers still. But that was my only comment on them. Generally speaking, while I have the mic, it's really hard because you can't choose where there's gravel. You can't choose where there's the appropriate materials to do it. So it's one of those where the 155E is pretty clear on that, of like that you can't pick where there's gravel, and we can't, unnecessarily push away from that. So I know we have 2 options for recommended motions on there. If you keep reading to the back, there's another option that's the opposite. I'm tempted to have you go forward with reading the motion that you were intending to on the approval side, because so speaking to it before we have a motion, it's kind of my thoughts on it.
thank you. Any other pre-deliberation comments?
That is what he began. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mayor Khan.
Yeah, pre-deliberation
Yes.
thought, but just to say, it's hard to think that after, a number of months of consideration, that I'd want any more time, but there's a long list of conditions. There is the potential of being able to review this and other information over the next month. And I personally, I think that the recommendation here is the conditional approval covers a lot, but it does cover a lot. That's why I'm at least questioning it for myself. Is this something that I want to vote on tonight, or do I want to be able, the opportunity to look at the proposed motion and other data suggested this evening? That's the question that I have in my thoughts.
Councilor Remy?
Thank you, Chair. Personally, I'd rather go one by one through each one and talk through what each of them means in this setting than put this on to another month. Because at that point, we brought all these folks in and out a number of times. I'd rather resolve it, even if that means go through each one and talk through what each one of them means as a group. Personally, but I disagree on the more time idea. But I understand why. This is a lot to try to go through, so that's why I'm thinking of that.
Can I be like somewhere exactly in between?
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Fasani.
I just have concerns about the Sullivan residents that say that they had
can you turn on your microphone, please?
Sorry about that. So what I was saying is that I am somewhere in between, whether we would push it off or vote, because I have these nagging concerns about the wells for the residents in Sullivan when they came up and they talked about it, and I've thought about it since then. They've said that they had sediment in there after the blasting, and I don't see any information that tells me that that's not true. And so I have concerns about letting it get to that point for any other residents unless, so that's just my one thing that's sort of hanging over me.
Councilor Remy?
I think those were Gilsum residents, because there hasn't
Yeah, I
been
think so,
blasting
too.
at this site, so those were Gilsum residents associated with the other, the unrelated site. We had a number of Gilsum.
We could move to strike the Sullivan comment, and then I have concerns for Gilsum residents.
And Gilsum has different requirements
Yeah.
than Keene with regard to an excavation site. Not that that means that they should be fouling somebody's well, but
Right.
I think we've got rules, we have conditions and also code that will help
We do,
prevent that.
right? We
Yes.
do in Keene, but the comment about the regional impact, and they don't have the same code as we do. So they're not monitoring it every 12 hour or whatever ours is. Ours is pretty detailed on how much you have to monitor it over 7 to 14 days or whatever it was. They just don't have those in there. So how's that going to look for us? I mean, the 7 residents that are affected by Keene, yay, they get tested, but no one else does. And I have concerns about that.
If something should occur to anyone's well due to what's going on in this, pit, what can they do about it? Who's responsible for it? Does the pit owner,
Well,
take care of
there's-
it?
I
Are
guess
we
it would
liable
depend
for it?
on how the LDC in their town went, right? Because this one says what happens.
If there's
but-
sediment in a well, then they should have to fix it. I mean, all the conditions have been met here, our hands are somewhat tied, but in the event that a property owner has an issue, they should have some recourse privately, I would assume. I don't know, I'm not
I
a
think that's
lawyer.
my challenge, is that I'm.
All right, let's focus this a little bit. Why don't we have a motion to continue or to decide tonight?
I would make a motion to decide. I would make a motion to.
Well, you make a
move
motion to continue, yeah.
No, I would move, my motion would be to approve one of the first waiver. There's not a.
Okay. Okay, all right, that's fine. Let's do the waivers.
Yeah. If you want a motion to continue, I'm sure.
If you want a motion just to get a temperature in the room of desire to continue, is that?
Yeah, I don't know why we'd want to address the waivers if we were going to continue again.
I don't know what order.
But that was just my thinking.
I just know personally I don't want to continue, that's why. So, yeah, but if we want to do that to get a vote, that sounds.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind?
Okay, I will do. Move to continue the public hearing for PB 2024-20 to the planning board meeting scheduled for September 29, 2025, 6:30 in City Hall, second floor chambers.
Do I have a second?
Can you speak up? I didn't hear at all what you said.
You're right, I didn't have the mic on. Thank you. Didn't have sound control here. I move to continue the public hearing for PB 2024-20 to the planning board meeting scheduled for September 29, 2025.
I'll second.
Ms. Fasani seconds. I think we had discussion, but any further discussion?
I was going to say to clarify, at 6:30 PM in the City Hall, second floor council chambers, just because I know you said it the first time, we missed it the second time, so.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, it seemed unnecessary, but it is in the written motion. I'd be glad to amend what I said to
No, we
include
got
that in the record.
We got it. Mr. Hafer?
Thank you, yes. Just as comment on the motion, I'm not inclined to support the continuance without some really specific, more information would we need? I feel like we're grounding in information at this point. I've done my best to summarize it, used ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot to read hundreds of pages of document. I think we know what we need to know. So if we're going to continue to put all of us through this, I think we need to be very specific about what specific information we're requesting that's preventing us from making a decision at this point. Is it traffic study? Is it 3D rendering of the site 30 years from now? Let's be clear about why we're continuing and what's going to help us get to a position that we're comfortable making a decision.
I'd speak to at least two things. One is the opportunity to review the 2022 traffic analysis and to be able to satisfy that concern. Second one is this question about reclamation that was just said. There were two different kinds of information about reclamation. One is that it would be done in phases all the way up, and then somebody saying, oh no, the requirement is only that it be done in the lower stage. It's good to know that it be done all the way up. That would be my preference. But maybe we can validate that concern. The concern about neighbors, the regional impact is a question that I am concerned in answering. And I don't think we answer it strictly by looking at this as affecting two homes in Keene. Those are, and I don't know what to make of the seasonal high water monitoring. I know that it is a concern. If there was any data about that in advance, I haven't heard that tonight.
Yeah, we're not going to hear anything about that until the spring.
Well,
I mean,
they had
that's
said
when
that
the
they
high water
would
is.
measure it in the spring prior to commencement, and then that would determine where they could dig down to, right? They needed to stay 6 feet above whatever that number was. They stated that was, the intent is to measure it prior to the beginning of it in the spring for that particular piece.
Mr. Cost?
So one other piece of this that I'm not sure about is when we talk about the visual impact, and we heard it'll be 180-foot cliffs eventually that we'll see, I think, from Route 9, but I don't know that.
That's not true.
Well, I said I don't know that. I said I don't know that we
I
will.
answered your question when you asked that.
Keep going.
Yeah, you don't.
So I'm not sure what we'll see from coming into Keene. But also, I understand, I think I understand that there are 3 different visual areas that we've identified that are sensitive or critical, and apparently this is not in one of those. So does that matter? If it's not in one of those, then is there any reason to be concerned about it? So I'm just not clear on that, how important that is. We'll see it, but maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't see it, but is it not in one of those 3 areas that are defined, then does it even matter? So that was a question maybe for staff to help me with, if it's not in one of those areas?
It's correct. It's not in one of the sensitive visual areas as articulated in the Land Development Code and the Earth Excavation Regulations.
Okay.
Ms. Mester,
When
do
you
have
say that articulated, can you expand on that just a tiny bit? Like, what does that mean? Can you see the cliff? Are you gonna see a cliff? Are you gonna see tree? What are you
So
gonna see?
there's a map of the city in, I believe it's in either the earth excavation or the hillside protection.
It's,
Go ahead.
I apologize. It's located in the telecommunications ordinance, which is in Article 13 of the Land Development Code, and it basically divides the property into 3 different view sheds. So there's view sheds 1 and 2, which are considered more important areas to be preserved, basically. And then this property, because it's so far close to the municipal boundary, is in view shed 3, which has lower restrictions, I guess I could say. I don't know if that's the right word, but the restrictions around what you can do in view area 3 are not as strict as they are for properties located in view areas 1 or 2.
So in common terms, let's just say you're coming down Route 9 into Keene, and you look up, are you gonna see this massive cliff of, you know, what's going on, or is it gonna be unsightly? That's really what, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, with all due respect, so the earth excavation regulations specifically point out this map where a visualization analysis of the entire city was conducted. And so the authors of the earth excavation regulations use this information to decide where the most critical visual preservation areas are located in the city. And this piece of property is not located within area 1 or 2. And then area 3 is everywhere else in the city.
When was that study done? Like recently, or?
The telecommunications, I don't know.
I mean, that's, sorry, probably.
Yeah, I don't know off the
My
top of my
bad.
head when that was
I was
adopted.
just curious.
And in view shed area 3 means what exactly?
Mr. Chair, if you can give me just a moment, I'm just looking up the language in the LDC.
Okay.
And one other quick question while she's looking it up. As far as the trucks entering and exiting, is the entry, is it any wider? Is Route 9 any wider for you guys? Or is there a pull-off, or is there any plan for any way to get the trucks in and out? Like, I guess, are you expanding the pull-off at all? It's kind of a nightmare.
I mean,
Big trucks in and out of that little area.
And again, I think we said that's a state
Yeah, it's a state
jurisdiction.
thing. Well, obviously, if you're going down Route 9 and the trucks are able to have an extra pull-off lane, it makes life a lot safer and easier over there, but we don't know because it's a state thing.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Megan Fortson, planner. So under Article 25.1.2, point C, point 3 of the earth excavation regulations, it says land areas identified as Zone 1 or Zone 2 in the view preservation overlay, which that's the map that's in the telecommunications ordinance. In Article 13 of this LDC, wait, hold on, now I'm losing my train of thought here. So basically, you're not allowed to develop a gravel pit in areas labeled as Zone 1 or Zone 2 unless the applicant can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the planning board that the proposed operation will not be visible from vistas and public rights of way in the city. So this parcel does not fall into Zone 1 or Zone 2.
When you say from the city, though, is that anywhere in the city?
But the,
It's in the city of Keene, yes.
this being in Zone 3 means that there is no regulation that it's not visible. It can be visible from the road in
Can
our
be visible,
regulations.
Correct.
So they're in Zone 3.
Yeah. Yep.
You want to see the
Okay, I believe it.
And if you'd like to see the map, it's on page 129 of the Land Development Code.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to continue based on excellent suggestion from Mr. Hafer, and we would probably ask the applicant for at least 2 additional things. A traffic analysis, or a revised or perhaps confirmed traffic analysis, some rendering of the reclamation, and then I think for ourselves to figure out is what are our responsibilities given that this project was listed as a development of regional impact. Mr. Councilor Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a traffic study from not that long ago, 2022. I think the purposes of regional impact was that we made sure that we notified our surrounding towns that this was happening and that they had proper notification to be able to come and participate as a representative of the municipality. I'm actually curious if they're going to recognize us as a regional impact and invite us to go to their meeting. But I think that was our requirement, was to determine that and then notify them properly as we did. What we do with that information is now they have the opportunity to come in the room and be heard. They were, and we had representatives at the last meeting, so I believe that has been met. As far as renderings, I don't need to see them because they don't need to reclaim them. They do need to reclaim them. They don't need to hide it from the road. They are going to reclaim every shelf from what they described, but there's nothing you can do about a vertical rock face, right? So there will be steep rock faces there. Our code does not say that they have to do anything about that from a visualization, but it does not sound like from the views that you have on Route 9 that there's going to be you're not going to be able to see that very well because there's that tree wall in the front of the building there, and you're too close to it to be able to see it from where you are on the road. So I don't know how you could. I've been looking through Street View trying to figure out how you could possibly see it.
I was merely stating the issues that were raised as a reason for continuation.
And just for clarity, I was just saying we should be clear, if that's what we want. I wasn't necessarily saying I want that. I was saying that the board as a whole should be clear about if we are to continue, how do we what information do we need to make a decision at the next meeting?
Okay.
So maybe we should vote on the continuance first and then decide what information we'd want. If that passes, we decide what information we need where we'd like to gather for the next meeting. To reiterate some of Councilor Remy's points, I think we need to take the traffic study as is. I presume we believe the applicant is telling the truth on their application in terms of the trips they anticipate coming in and out of the site. And so personally, I'm satisfied with that as well, as presuming that was part of the application. And I don't think we're in the business of judging the information we're provided in that manner anyway. So, unless there's
Ms. Fasani?
reasons to believe differently.
I am inclined to vote tonight and not go with the continuance, because I think that makes sense for what you said about we brought everybody here. I have most of the information that I need to make a decision. My decision won't be as favorable as if I have some additional, if someone can prove to me that it's not going to do to the residents what we heard what happened to the other residents. That is going to remain a huge concern for me, and I don't see that addressed anywhere. So that's just my thoughts on that.
All right, well, let's call the vote on the continuation motion. All those in favor of continuing to September? All opposed? Okay, motion fails. Let's move on to the waivers. Yep, one at a time, yep.
I would like to move to approve a waiver from section 25.3.1.d of the LDC to allow the excavation perimeter to be within 250 feet, but not less than 75 feet of surface water resources.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mayor Khan?
Sure. I think the staff has found that that design at the 75-foot distance is satisfactory. And I'm inclined to accept your that analysis and not, I think the distance, if we held to that, would not be satisfactory to the site. So I think we all, hence I support the approval of that waiver.
Okay. All right, seeing no more hands, let's move to vote for the waiver for the setback, the surface water resource setback. All those in favor of the waiver? Any opposed? Okay. Waiver is approved. Next.
I would move to approve a waiver from section 25.3.6 of the LDC to allow excavation of bedrock where bedrock contains toxic or acid-forming elements or compounds.
Second, and
Thank you.
if I can tack on, just, I think the fact that even the third party that we brought in to review it is comfortable with the plan, and expert in the space, it seemed like there's a comfort to the plan and that there's a remediation if something does go wrong, made me more comfortable with it. We should look at that regulation if that's something that doesn't really apply in the state, the way we have it written, and see if there's anything we need to change in the LDC itself, if it's something that shouldn't apply here the way it does, or at least define exceptions for it. But their request makes sense to me.
Okay, I think we can call the vote on that. All those in favor of the waiver for the AMD? All those in favor? Opposed?
I'll change it. I'll
You're
rather be
opposed?
opposed to it.
Okay. 2 opposed. But the waiver is granted. Finally,
And finally, I would move to approve a waiver from section 25.3.13 of the LDC to allow a maximum excavation area of 12 acres.
Second.
discussion?
Yeah. Can I ask, so much of the discussion was focused on 5-acre sections, and I'm just curious there's a big difference. 12 acres is a pretty significant territory to approve at once, so I guess I'm just looking for some guidance. What justifies the expanded 12-acre site?
Can I try?
Yeah, sure.
It's the 5-acre site, it's that they can have up to 12 acres unreclaimed at the same time. The site down at the base of the hill is 5 acres now. They're gonna leave that unreclaimed while they do work in other areas, which it's 5 acres plus up to a 7-acre section in one of the zones.
That's right.
So it's the 5 acres, that's the base camp there. 7, they're gonna reclaim the 7, they're gonna go to the next one, and then leave that 5 acres open. That'll be the last thing reclaimed. That's what I heard described today.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're using the bottom as for processing.
I
Yep.
totally get it.
Okay, let's call the vote on this one. All those in favor of the waiver for the 5-acre, all those in favor? Any opposed? Waivers granted. Okay. Now we can move on to the, well, let's do, let's vote on the amendment to the motion that, okay, all right, fine, you're right. So you have to read the motion now. This whole thing.
Okay. I would like to move to approve PB-2024-20 as shown on the plan set identified as gravel and earth removal plan, G2 Holdings LLC, prepared by Granite Engineering at varying scales on December 20th, 2024, and last revised on August 22nd, 2025, with the following conditions. First, prior to final approval and signature of the plans by the planning board chair, the following conditions precedent shall be met. Owner's signature shall appear on the title page and overview plan on sheet 1 of the plan set, and B, submittal of 5 full-size paper copies and a digital copy of the final plan set. C, submittal of security for sedimentation and erosion control, stormwater management, and reclamation for the first permit period of work to be completed. And D, the applicant or owner shall pay all outstanding third-party consultant fees. E, submittal of and approval of all required state and federal permits. The approval numbers for these permits shall be added to the cover sheet of the plan set. F, the requested waivers and conditional use permits with results shall be added to the cover sheet. And 2, subsequent to the final approval, the following conditions shall be met. A, erosion control, sedimentation control, and drainage management shall be installed before any site preparation and/or evacuation work begins and shall be maintained in good working order during the excavation project. B, over the life of the excavation permit and any renewal thereof, the applicant shall provide monthly inspections by a qualified third-party licensed professional in the state of New Hampshire regarding erosion and sedimentation control, pH, and stormwater runoff. Reports for these inspections shall be submitted to the Community Development Department. C, over the life of the excavation permit and any renewal thereof in accordance with Section 25.3.4.c of the LDC, the applicant shall monitor groundwater levels and surface water levels on a monthly basis to determine the extent to which there are any adverse impacts. First, the applicant shall notify the Community Development Department within 24 hours of any adverse impacts on groundwater levels. And 2, the applicant shall implement the approved protocol for providing replacement water supplies for water supplies that are disrupted as a result of the excavation operations. D, in accordance with Section 25.3.3 of the LDC, a monitoring well shall be installed in the area of Period 1 in spring of 2026 to confirm the seasonal high water table conditions. And E, in accordance with Section 25.3.3 of the LDC, seasonal high water level monitoring shall be completed in bedrock well BRW-09 prior to the commencement of work in permit period 8 and throughout the duration of work within the phase to confirm that the revised grades are at least 6 feet above the water table. F, in accordance with Section 25.3.5.c of the LDC, ongoing monitoring of the groundwater quality shall be conducted semi-annually throughout the term of the permit and any renewal thereof, and for a period of not less than 2 years following the cessation of the excavation activities and reclamation of the excavation site. G, 6 months prior to the commencement of work for the next period permit, the property owner shall submit a permit renewal application for review and approval by the planning board and sufficient securities to cover the cost of sedimentation and erosion control, stormwater management and reclamation for the next period of work to be completed. H, excavation activities shall only occur between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. The area of unreclaimed, inactive, and active excavation area shall not exceed 12 acres. And J, at the end of all excavation operations, the site shall be reclaimed and monitored in accordance with Section 25.4 of the Land Development Code.
I'll second the only piece, there was one time where you said evacuation, you meant to say excavation in
Oh, I thought
2A.
it changed.
Yep, that was it. So the only, just as long as we're on the same page, that's what you meant, then we're on the same page. I just, for the
I
purposes of.
said, yeah, I said evac, but then I switched
Yep.
to excavation.
Excavation, yep. As long as we're on the same page, I wanted to make sure just for clarity. Then I'd second.
Councilor Remy, you have a change you'd like to make?
We already did it.
I did do it.
Oh, she did? Oh, you read it
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a change?
Yeah.
Okay.
The change is just to say that,
Submitted.
Changed it in.
yeah, submittal
arbitrarily in
and
real time.
approval,
Okay.
yeah, was included in the language.
All right, that's fine. It's a minor enough change. We'll go with it.
We could say whatever we want in that time, because it's not there's no motion made. This is just
Okay.
a recommendation,
Okay.
so.
All right. Additional discussion? Councilor Remy?
This is really tough. Every quarry mining, it's tough because they're big impact. So they're affect the people around it more. You can hear it. There is noise. You can't control where they are, right? You can't say, oh, I wish you could put it in downtown, or I wish you could put it in a certain area. The rock is where the rock is, and there's only so much you can do. So, you can hear the noise in an area where normally there might not be some. Once it's been excavated, then it goes away. But it's one of those where these are always tough because they're in the middle of nowhere sometimes. Yeah, with that, I'm leaning on the side of approval. It's hard, but I can't think of a better spot in Keene for it, frankly. I don't know, it's hard because it's surrounded by a lot of woods around there. You're not putting it into the middle of Main Street, but it is tough. No matter where you put it, there's neighbors. So.
Mayor?
Yeah. So in serving in the state senate, I frequently got to this place of saying, this is a 50-50 call, and there's probably a 51-49, and you got to make a call. And I think, in the positive sense, I want to say to the owners and the proposers, I think you've done a very good job in trying to answer a lot of the questions that we've had. Where I have trouble with it is with regional impact and what I view in my role of needing to protect what I see as the region's highway. And the region's highway is Route 9. And I just have a hard time. It's not the sight view that bothers me as much as it is the traffic impact. And so as I said, Route 9 is our region's highway. We have a lot of traffic moving up and down that highway, large homes, pre-manufactured homes, a lot of truck traffic, a lot of traffic that's moving between Route 91 and the center of the state. It's a pathway that I feel very responsible for the actions that we take in the city, and in this instance, I think the impact here is something that can be negative on the region. So that's my feeling, and I will be voting in that manner.
Mr. Hafer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been of different minds throughout this process. A couple things that stand out to me. I had the opportunity to serve on a transportation commission for the state for the road work being done to mitigate flooding in Alstead recently. One of the comments at that public hearing was from a gentleman who wanted to make sure that the riprap used to complete that project was of local stone. And that just sort of struck me as something interesting and a new wrinkle on this decision here, that it was important to them that this wasn't gray stone brought in from out of state to repair their flood-prone region there. And so that made me think a bit more about the necessity of operations like the operations scheduled here. The concerns of, I think that I think we should in a way see this as a victory of in terms of having strong planning regulations, the strictest, we've heard the stricter than needed regulations, I think lets me rest a little bit more easily that we've done our job here in making sure that the applicant will run their operations to the levels that are required by the city of Keene. And so with those things in mind, I intend to vote in favor of this application tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Cost.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think like everyone, this is a back and forth and how do you decide? I think having thorough engineering investigation on the part of the applicant and then having third-party engineers who looked at this very seriously, made recommendations that were adopted, and saying that the project, they saw the mitigations and the actions as being able to be dealt with, and the project they didn't see having major impacts. So the third-party engineers were suggesting to us that all of the ideas and mitigations and engineering design done by the applicant were appropriate, and that meant a lot to me that I wasn't hearing. This is so technically deep, and maybe ChatGPT 5 might help me, but having that side of the view coming from the third parties, I think, was very helpful to me, because I think at some point you do have to depend on experts, and having experts that were looking at what the applicant did and then incorporating their recommendations was important. So,
Thank you. Ms. Fasani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that the applicant has really gone through a lot to provide us with the expert information that we needed to make a decision. So I'm really thankful to you guys for doing that. Thankful to staff and city for hiring someone else to also go out there and continue to gather information for us to make a solid decision based on the regional impact. I won't be inclined to vote to approve it. I will say, just to let everybody know that is listening, that if this does move forward, they do have to notify people, so you should look at your land development code. They have to notify you and present the data for the pre-water monitoring 45 days prior, and then they have to follow up with the results afterwards and not less than 2 years after excavation cessation. So that to me says there will be a lot of water monitoring going on in the future, and that will help me lay my head on the pillow at night. So thank you.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I mean, I've been on the planning board for a while, and I am always looking for ways to approve projects. I think we have an important responsibility to protect and have smart growth in the city, but, these projects are all by well-intentioned people, and we put them through various degrees of hoops to get approvals. And I think in this case, we've set a new planning board record for the number of conditions that we're imposing. But at the end of the day, I think all the questions in my mind have been answered. So with that, we will call a vote. So all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that means the motion
tie.
does not pass.
Correct. which means that's a denial.
It's a denial, correct.
We denied the continuance.
There's no continuation, no, it's denied.
Reconsideration is
I believe you need to make, I don't believe it's a denial, it's, the vote didn't pass, so it goes back to the board.
It's not the zoning board.
You made a motion, it didn't pass, so now there's.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
I mean, I believe, you can state me if I'm wrong, but I believe the motion didn't pass, so there was no denial, there was no motion for denial. It's 4-4, the motion didn't pass, so you need to make a motion to deny, or you need to make a motion to approve. Right now, it's at a stalemate. The zoning board would need a
A
motion.
tie vote on a motion to approve is equivalent to a denial.
I don't believe so, sir, with all due respect. I could be wrong, but I believe the
the way
motion
we've
didn't
operated.
pass.
Mr. Chair, may I clarify?
Yeah.
Thank you. So under section 5.2 of the planning board's rules of procedure, it specifies what happens in the case of a tie vote, and it says, in a case of a tie vote on any motion or recommendation, said motion or recommendation shall be deemed defeated.
The motion was defeated, correct. The motion to approve was defeated, so now there's no motion on the table, but there needs to be a decision made. The motion didn't pass, I agree. But you would either need to make a motion to deny or reconvene, ask for more questions, request a deferral if you need more answers, but the motion did not pass.
That's not the way we've operated in the past.
I think that's against state rules.
We do need something.
With all due respect, I do think that RSA would suggest otherwise.
As we haven't denied one in a long time.
Yeah, that's
think
fine.
it's
I mean,
probably-
we're not gonna decide with what we know tonight,
Yeah.
but staff will let you know what the actual outcome is.
If we're not gonna make a decision tonight, then I would default to the position he's taking, which is that we defeated the motion that was on the table, which is traditionally Robert's rules, that there's now then no motion on the table, and that you would be sitting with, we've just had all the discussion we've had, we've made no motion. We could move to a continuance, if that would help people, to figure out what else it is. But if we're at 4-4, we're at 4-4, and we need to wait, you know. So, I don't-
Yeah, up or down, where, I mean,
Yeah,
because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we have a motion to deny, it's gonna be
Maybe
4-4, and that'll be defeated, which makes no sense.
Mr. Chairman, for the sake of at least attempting to take an action on this application tonight, perhaps a motion to deny would be germane, and then if it's tied again, we'll have to continue. But the applicant's not wrong, they are.
Why don't we just do as Councilor Remy suggested and revisit the motion to continue?
I'd move.
Your prerogative, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I move reconsideration. Oh, I voted in the negative. I cannot do that. You have to. Move to reconsider.
I don't even know if we need to follow that for planning board, but yeah, move to reconsider the decision to continue the meeting, and then we vote on the reconsideration? Or do we vote on we just go to voting on the motion?
Actually, the first motion is to reconsider.
Reconsider the continuance of moving the public hearing for PB 2024-20 to the planning board scheduled for September 29, 2025 at 6:30 PM in City Hall, second floor, council chambers. Move to reconsider the decision.
Someone who voted.
Second.
You-
I'll second.
Yeah, good.
Any discussion? All right, so,
I would just reiterate my earlier statement that if we are going to reconsider, that we need to have new information available to us when we meet again, and we should be very clear with the applicant what the information needed to advance their application is needed for us to make a decision, or we'll find ourselves in
Well, I'll
for a
defer
similar
to
spot.
the no votes to see what information they want.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yep.
interested in the traffic impact analysis and any update to the 2022 data that can be provided. I think also you had a sort of a catch-all suggestion there, our responsibilities relative to regional impact.
Okay. Any other information that we want?
I was just curious about that zone 3, when that was determined.
Yeah, it's in Zone 3, so there is no...
When was that zone 3 created? Like, is that a recent?
Yeah, Mr. Clements,
I mean,
it's during, it
landscape
was
changes.
during the telecom ordinance overlay, which I'm not sure exactly when it was, and he wasn't either, so I'm not sure. that's-
Fairly confident it predates the land development code.
This is Megan Portson, planner, so, Article 13 of the Land Development Code says that the view preservation overlay map that defines those 3 zones, that was dated March 2019. Land Development Code didn't go into effect until September of 2021, so it
it's fairly
predates,
recent.
predates the adoption of the Land Development Code.
Counselor Remy?
And functionally, when we voted to bring in the LDC in 2021, we would have reconfirmed that map by including it in it.
Ms. Visani?
I would like to see that the applicant went back to the people that were already affected regionally and provided some data on whether or not those claims are valid. That it did affect them and that their wells were affected. That's what I would like to see.
Anybody who's been affected would have been affected by either, unlikely to have been impacted by the 2022 dig. So it would have been affected by
So
digs in other towns, which really
perhaps,
is
did they have
not-
data on it, though? Like, I know that our requirements are pretty severe, but perhaps there's other data where you can see that kind of thing? And if there's not, there's not, but that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we can really ask for that, but if the
Based on
applicant
regional
really wants to
impact, how
volunteer
can you
something,
determine
that
it
would
if
be fine.
you can't provide any data to satisfy the issue of regional impact?
The issue, excuse me.
Mr. Hafer?
Thank you. I'm not an expert, I think, but Mr. Remy did a nice job explaining we've met our regional impact needs. We've told the region that this project is happening and invited them to be a part of the process. And so if
And I'm just sharing what my opinion
Sure.
of it is.
Yeah, I'm just saying what we
That's not
can-
my responsibility, that's not my sole responsibility for regional impact. This regional impact is a more subjective term, and there might be minimum requirements that you need to meet to alleviate that for some people, and I think they're going to be different for others, and for me, this one's just different.
Well, we did determine it meets regional impact, correct? So that we have to figure out.
No,
No,
there's nothing to figure
we
out.
know what the requirements are.
In what capacity is the regional impact then, like?
Regional
what-
impact merely adds other towns as abutters.
Right, but the reason that, again, was put into place was so that we verbalize that we're aware of it. It sort of protects us. That's all it does, is just protect us. It doesn't,
No, it's a communication, it's a forced communication. So
Right.
the other towns
Know
know
that
what's going on, if they want to participate.
And it also
in the
provides.
past, I recall one other case in Marlboro where it was on the line of Marlboro. And Marlboro voted it down and the whole thing dropped, right? So we don't even know what Sullivan's going to do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd just like to remind the board that your responsibility is to weigh the merits of this application based on the regulations that are before you in the Land Development Code. You have already decided that the 3 deviations from our regulations are okay for this application. You approved those waivers. To then turn around and not act on this application as a whole, where you've already said that these deviations are okay, is moving outside of your role in this process. And while I understand and appreciate the concern for neighbors and abutting communities, your responsibility this evening is to look at the application and the materials submitted, reviewed by your third-party consultants, and weigh whether they meet our standards, and then make a decision whether the application meets those standards or not.
Mayor Kong.
Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the staff's comments in that regard. I think what causes me this evening is that we've had a slug of information given to us, and while this is the information that maybe we ought to be basing our decision on, some of this dates back, as you said, back to December. I was focusing on the slug of information that I was getting, in the last several days. I wasn't focusing on the motion, and I wasn't focusing on going back to a December traffic study. It's why I wanted to defer our decision until September, which I think at this point we can go forward and vote on that.
Okay. So we have a motion to continue to September.
Well, I think the first motion, we just need to open, we need to reconsider it.
Right.
Then we're going to need to adopt that motion.
Okay.
I think it's a two-step process.
All right.
So the motion to reconsider.
So motion to reconsider the continuation. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so
No, that motion would be up, the
Now
way
the
that we're at
motion
least
is on
interpreting
the
the
table.
rules. Yeah,
any discussion? All right, so all in favor of continuance to September? Any opposed?
Can we have the attorney here for next time? Thank you.
Yeah, good idea. All right, motion's continued to September.
Thank you, Board. May I just clarify the information that I need to provide? Maybe something regarding the unlikelihood of sediment in wells. Resubmit the traffic study that we submitted in December. Was there any other information?
That's what I captured.
So we'll bring back 2 things in 30 days. And then maybe we'll be able
I
to
mean,
reconsider the application.
I don't know if it's true or not true, but if you gave different traffic information to the town of Sullivan, that would be good to know.
Give different traffic information?
Yeah, that statement was made by a public comment. If it's not true, fine.
Oh, okay, we can clarify
Yeah.
misleading information. Yep, that's fine. Is that it?
Mr. Chair, may I just ask a point of clarification? So I want to make sure that it's very clear for the applicant what we're asking them to come to this next meeting with, because this is additional time and, money on behalf of the applicant and on staff that we're going to be spending on this project for another continuation. And I am worried that if we're asking them to provide data related to wells, I want to confirm that those are within the city of Keene, because if they're not, then that's outside the purview of this planning board. But if you want updated traffic data, that would be within your purview to ask for updated information related to that. But really, although this is a development of regional impact, as was noted by Chair Farrington, that really only affords the Regional Planning Commission and any adjacent municipalities additional notice by the planning board. But the purview that you have over this project falls within the jurisdiction of the city of Keene, not
Right,
Sullivan
so
and not anywhere else.
The other towns, they have to represent their own interest.
Correct.
Does the state part have anything to do with it, though? Like, what the state's, in the traffic study part of it? As far as what they are responsible for on that road?
The state reviewed and approved the street access permit. The state's not going to review anything related to potential traffic generation or traffic impacts as a result of the use.
And the state looks at what the driveway is going to and what operation is being connected to the state right-of-way. So they evaluate the use of the property when they issue a driveway permit.
But is that part of the study, traffic study?
Yeah, we continued, yeah. We don't need to go further.
You're
Yep.
asking what you're gonna need, so I'm asking.
So we're asking, for the record, for the applicant to submit updated traffic information. Okay.
I wonder if there seems to be some potential misinformation about the height of the finished bands. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask.
We can't be further deliberating this application after already continuing it to another meeting.
Isn't that
So
what a
I
continuance is
think,
for?
yeah, we've articulated to the
Yeah,
applicant in some
you'll get
capacity.
communication from staff as to what information will be asked for at the next meeting.
Understood.
Ms. Ice, would you like to say something?
I would, that's why I raised my hand. Thank you for recognizing me, Chairman. I did want to point out that I think we're going to have a special hearing. The regulations say we have to have this decided on in 20 days after the hearing, your own land development code. And so I think we should look at a date within that 20-day period to comply.
No, the typical practice is that, I don't know what
It's
you're
in your
referring
earth
to, but
excavation,
it's-
land development.
continuation is from one regularly scheduled planning board to the next.
Sooner. I mean, if you can get it done, 20 days?
Yeah, there's a deadline from when the public hearing is closed. So when you moved to vote, I would argue you closed the public hearing. So give me a minute here.
I mean, from our perspective, we'll work hard to get what we need, but the public hearing is,
This is Megan Fortson, planner. If you look at page 324 of the LDC, the very bottom right-hand corner of that page says that within 20 calendar days following the closing of the public hearing, the planning board shall approve with conditions, or disapprove of this application. Notice of the decision shall be provided to the applicant in writing.
So yeah, that's the rules.
I mean,
Okay. Well, I'll leave it to staff to schedule a meeting then.
Yep.
right. Yeah, we can work with staff on that. Okay, that's it. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, just real quick. So we're in a brief pause while the room clears before we proceed to the rest of the agenda. All right, next up is a Master Plan Steering Committee referral for the 2025 Comprehensive Master Plan for the City of Keene. I mean, I can probably handle this if you'd like. So, the Master Plan Steering Committee had essentially completed our ad hoc efforts by approving the comprehensive master plan as written and as available in draft form. And it was the referral from the Master Plan Steering Committee is to this body to do two things. One, set a hearing date that we're going to have a public hearing and deliberate and approve or disapprove and adopt the master plan. And secondly, we would decide to either, and we can do this tonight, refer the plan to the city council to endorse. So most of you have seen the master plan, I hope, and it's been in the works for almost 2 years, but I think it's a really nice output, very good deliverable, and I think something that'll be very useful for the city going forward. So I guess I'm looking for, unless you have any questions of me or staff on the master plan, we'll move to the votes that we need to take. No? Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion. Roberta.
Okay, I'd like to move to approve the 2025 Comprehensive Master Plan approval.
No, you want
Move to
to set a public hearing?
There's two.
There's two motions. So the first one is, you want
I got them right here.
Go
to,
ahead.
you got them? Okay.
Yeah. Move to refer the City of Keene 2025 Comprehensive Master Plan to City Council for endorsement.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Second one.
Motion is approved.
Move to set a public hearing for the adoption of the 2025 Comprehensive Master Plan on Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Another agenda item for the 29th. All right, so I see you have on the agenda, Megan, the correspondence. Is there something we wanted to do, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't think that there's anything in particular. This was more so just an informational item since we had received correspondence from the applicant. There's no action to be taken on this item.
Other than kind of a personal attack on me, but that's fine. All right, any staff updates? Other than the fact you're gonna have to hire someone to manage all these conditions?
Yeah, no staff updates at this time besides the incoming updates based on how we're going to handle the 20-day timeline for a decision on this application.
Okay. All right, any new business at this late hour? Okay, good. Upcoming dates of interest, I'll just read these. We have a special planning board meeting scheduled for September 8th, so perhaps that's a channel that we can use. The Joint Committee of the Planning Board and PLD, September 8th, 6:30 PM. Planning Board Steering Committee, September 16th, 12 noon. Planning Board Site Visit, September 24th at 8 AM, dependent on applications that we receive. And then the next meeting of this board, September 29th, 6:30 PM in these chambers. And with that, I will adjourn our meeting at 9:51.